Chapter 611. At night, in a luxurious private room in the inner city of the imperial capital, Delta Origi was meditating with her eyes closed. Suddenly, a figure appeared out of nowhere. Delta Origi gently opened her eyes. She didn't turn around but said directly, "Why did you take so long?" Lung Shichi shrugged. "It's all because eunuch Gao told me a lot of things. In short, he told me to be careful of Li Jueqing." "Yes, you killed the Li brothers. There's already an irreconcilable hatred between us. You should be careful." Delta Origi didn't know that Lung Shichi had been assassinated by Li Jueqing. She thought that it was just a fight between the two great chiefs. Lung Shichi didn't say anything in detail. Since things had already developed to this point, there was no need to distract Delta Origi. He was about to get down to business when Delta Origi beat him to it. Delta Origi glanced at Lung Shichi and said, "I heard that you spent a lot of money to buy a dual cultivation technique at an auction a few months ago. You even brought back a beauty?" Hearing this, Lung Shichi's eyes twitched. However, he immediately said seriously, "I was just about to tell you about this. Do you remember that I wanted to borrow some people from the Blood Garment Pavilion? That woman was sent by the Blood Garment Pavilion. She's my senior sister, Xuanhuan. I'm sure you've heard of her." "I see," Delta Origi nodded. "Then the assassin who killed his way into Dark Thunder Manor was also from the Blood Garment Pavilion?" "That's right. That person is the Pavilion Master's direct disciple, Feng Shamo. He's very powerful." Delta Origi suddenly exclaimed, "Huh? I heard that Feng Shamo and your master, Wu Xiang, are both competitors for the next Pavilion Master. Why would he help you?" Lung Shichi pondered for a moment and shook his head. "I don't understand either. Anyway, this was arranged by the Ink Frost Ghoul. I can't guess the thoughts of such a big shot. In short, we just need to improve our strength at all costs and step into a high position. In the future, whether it's helping the Blood Garment Pavilion complete the Blood Seed plan or getting rid of the Blood Garment Pavilion's shackles, we'll have to rely on ourselves." As he said this, he began to carefully observe the subtle expressions of the Delta Origi. What he said, especially the second half of his sentence, showed his disloyalty. He wanted to see what the Delta Origi would think. If the Delta Origi were not on his side, then today's plan could be cancelled. The Delta Origi turned her head and didn't say anything, but a faint smile appeared on her face. Seeing this, Lung Shichi suddenly felt relieved. He simply said bluntly, "I plan to build a force and I need your help." Hearing this, the Delta Origi's eyes narrowed slightly. It was as if time had returned to a few years ago when they were still on the Blood Mist Island. However, she immediately put on a cold face and said, "I'm not free." She still clearly remembered that when she invited Lung Shichi to build a force with her, Lung Shichi refused. Lung Shichi rubbed his nose. At that time, he was just a nobody on the Blood Mist Island, so it was reasonable for him to be cautious. Now, he had enough strength and confidence. More importantly, the Delta Origi could be said to be the only person he could trust in this world. Therefore, he planned to invite the Delta Origi to join the underworld. However, looking at the current state of the Delta Origi, it was obvious that this matter was not so easy. Lung Shichi took out a gray-white jade slip from his mustard seed bracelet and said, "This is my sincerity. Why don't you take a look first?" The Delta Origi's gaze drifted back and forth between Lung Shichi's face and the jade slip. In the end, she picked up the jade slip. After a few breaths, the Delta Origi showed some joy. Lung Shichi's heart skipped a beat. He knew that there was a chance. Recorded in the jade slip was the 9-yin white bone claw that he had won from the lottery. This spiritual technique was indeed very suitable for the Delta Origi. Moreover, Lung Shichi had also written down his experience when he reached perfection. With the Delta Origi's talent and formlessness, he believed that her cultivation would improve at a rapid pace. After a short while, the Delta Origi put down the jade slip. She also wanted the 9-yin white bone claw, but she was a little unwilling to join Lung Shichi's force so easily. She rolled her eyes and stretched out her hand. "Give me some of your blood essence." Blood essence? Lung Shichi's heart skipped a beat. What did she want his blood essence for? His body was very strong and his chi and blood were vigorous. He also had a lot of blood essence, so taking out a few drops was nothing. However, the problem was that he had the bloodlines of the Dark Shadow clan and the Star clan. In particular, the Star bloodline had been completely awakened. If someone studied his blood essence, they might discover something. However, Lung Shichi still forced out a few drops of blood essence and gave them to the Delta Origi. The Delta Origi smiled gently and explained, "I have recently created a secret technique that requires some special blood." Hearing that the Delta Origi was actually creating a secret technique, Lung Shichi was a little surprised because he had never done this before. For example, many of his cultivation methods and spiritual techniques were fused, but strictly speaking they were not original. In fact, with his current cultivation and understanding of various cultivation methods and spiritual techniques, he could also create some spiritual techniques and secret techniques. However, the quality would definitely not be high and it would take a lot of time, so the gains did not make up for the losses. Leng Shichi looked at the Delta Origi. Now that he had taken the spiritual technique and the blood essence, did she have any other conditions? The Delta Origi also asked, "How many people do you have in your force? How strong are they?" Since she asked this question, it meant that she was already interested. However, this question also made Leng Shichi feel a little awkward, but he could not lie, so he could only say, "At the moment it's just me." Swoosh. The Delta Origi's gaze suddenly changed. Although she did not say anything, Leng Shichi could tell from her eyes that she meant, "Are you kidding me? You also know that I never do things that I am not confident in. Establishing a force is very important, and not just anyone is qualified to join. The force I want doesn't care about the number of people, but the quality. Whether it's strength or potential, it can't be weak. You are the first person I thought of." Leng Shichi said seriously, "Also, I obtained a small secret realm by chance. It can be used as a place for a force's sect. It's very hidden and it's almost invincible." "A secret realm?" The Delta Origi exclaimed, "You obtained a secret realm?" In today's world, there were very few forces that could establish a sect in a secret realm. Only the Yin-Yang Hall, the Three Dynasties, and the Four Sacred Spiritual Realm had secret realms. Only hidden families like the Zhuge family had secret realms. Just as Leng Shichi had said, controlling a secret realm meant that one was in an invincible position. Because as long as one hid within the secret realm, others wouldn't even be able to enter, so how could they attack one's forces? After thinking for a moment, the Delta Origi finally nodded and said, "I can join your force, but other than the 9 white bone claw and the blood essence, you have to promise me something." "What is it?" "I haven't thought about it yet." The Delta Origi blinked. Leng Shichi suddenly felt a headache. Another favor like this and it was really a headache. After all, his spiritual power was almost exhausted, and he had not had time to recover. However, as long as he could get the Delta Origi to join him, he would agree to anything, let alone a favor. He immediately patted his chest and said, "Okay, I promise to be on call." The Delta Origi then asked, "What is this force called?" Seeing that the Delta Origi agreed, Leng Shichi finally breathed a sigh of relief. He smiled and said, "Welcome to the underworld." Chapter 612. Just after Delta Origi agreed, Leng Shichi opened the system interface and chose the option to invite a member of the territory. A system prompt suddenly appeared before his eyes. "Do you want to invite the other party to join the Mansion of the Dead?" "Yes." Immediately, a palm-sized mark of the netherworld appeared between Leng Shichi and Delta Origi. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared into the Delta Origi's body. However, the Delta Origi did not seem to notice it. At the same time, Leng Shichi's system interface also showed the basic information of Delta Origi, including cultivation techniques, common spiritual skills and so on. More importantly, Leng Shichi discovered that he could control the mark that had just drilled into the Delta Origi's body. It seemed to be something like a seal. As long as he willed it, he could directly take away the life of Delta Origi. The territory system actually has such a trick up its sleeve? Leng Shichi was also a little surprised. For Delta Origi, he naturally did not need to use such a method. However, the Mansion of the Dead would eventually expand, and it would take in more members in the future. With this guarantee, it meant that he had the power to kill the members of the Mansion of the Dead, which was indeed very advantageous. Immediately after, another system prompt appeared. "The territory upgrade conditions have been met. Would you like to spend 5,000 system coins to upgrade the territory?" "No." Leng Shichi was not in a hurry to upgrade now. After all, he still had things to do tonight. It would not be too late to upgrade after everything was arranged. Delta Origi curiously asked, "Where is that arcane realm of yours? What does it look like?" Since Delta Origi had already become a member of the Mansion of the Dead, Leng Shichi had nothing to hide. He said, "The Mansion of the Dead is actually with me. It's just that it's not convenient to enter the Mansion of the Dead now. I'll take you in to have a look in a few days." Delta Origi rolled her eyes at him and said in a bad mood, "If there's nothing else, let's go. Lei Mayan is still waiting for me to report back. I'll look for you in a few days." After saying that, Leng Shichi disappeared in a flash. In fact, after the Delta Origi became members of the underworld, he could directly bring the Delta Origi into the underworld. The reason why he didn't want the Delta Origi to enter was because the current underworld was simply too shabby. If the Delta Origi saw the mansion of the dead, which was not even comparable to a small village, they might just turn around and leave in a fit of anger. Therefore, Leng Shichi planned to wait until the mansion of the dead was upgraded before bringing the Delta Origi in to take a look. After leaving, Leng Shichi did not return to Dark Thunder Manor. Instead, he traveled through the streets of the inner city like a ghost. Soon he arrived at an inconspicuous alley. Zhuge Puha was waiting for him here. After everyone left the heavenly tomb, Leng Shichi sent a voice transmission to Zhuge Puha to meet him here. He was prepared to hand over the Star Clan's secret treasure that he had obtained in Tranquil Sun County. There were too many high-grade resources in that batch of treasures. Leng Shichi was also very envious when he saw them. He had also taken a portion of them for himself, but even so, he took out dozens of mustard seed bags and handed them to Zhuge Puha. Zhuge Puha opened one of them and his eyes widened. He could not believe what he saw. He actually saw countless high-grade materials. What shocked him even more was that these materials were basically ancient materials that had been extinct for a long time. Most of them were star system materials, which were very suitable for the spirit cultivators of the Zhuge family. Although the Zhuge family had accumulated a large number of experts over the past hundreds of thousands of years, one should not forget that the strength of a spirit cultivator was not only dependent on the cultivation realm. Spirit weapons were also a very important factor that affected the level of strength. As long as they had these high-grade materials, there was hope to refine a large number of high-grade spirit weapons, which would greatly increase the overall combat power of the Zhuge family. In the future, they would have more confidence to restore the glory of the Star Clan. Zhuge Puha was stunned and could not say a word for a long time. Leng Shichi could only say, "Brother Zhuge, I have already obtained the secret treasure of Tranquil Sun County. According to the terms of the transaction, I have also kept a portion of the materials. I will have to trouble you to pass the rest to Senior Zhuge Yun. My business with the Zhuge family has come to an end. Farewell." Before Zhuge Puha could react, Leng Shichi quickly used remnant wind and lightning light steps to leave the place. After he had seen the thousands of experts in the Zhuge family and the secret treasure of Tranquil Sun County, he knew that the Star Clan had indeed left behind many backup plans. This also meant that the Zhuge family would come out sooner or later. When that time came, there would be a storm that would sweep across the entire Falling Star continent. Therefore, it was better for Leng Shichi to keep a certain distance from the Zhuge family and the Star Clan. When Leng Shichi returned to the Xingji Pavilion of the Dark Thunder Mansion, he immediately went into the Mansion of the Dead. He came to the front of the Gate of the Dead. At this moment, there were already 1,000 or 2,000 souls floating around. Almost all of these souls were people who had died in the Baranchuan tribe and the Wasteland tribe. A small portion of them were the Dark Thunder Guards of Tranquil Sun County led by Li Zhangtao. Of course, there were also the Li brothers who had just died. With so many souls gathered here, they were emitting a terrifying aura of the netherworld. They even crowded the front of the Gate of the Dead. Leng Shichi summoned the system and chose to upgrade territory. Spending 5,000 system coins to upgrade territory. Territory upgrading. Territory upgrade successful. In an instant, the entire Mansion of the Dead shook, and black gas filled the sky. The area of the Mansion of the Dead expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it was more than 10 miles wide. Gradually, the black gas dissipated, revealing brand new buildings. Leng Shichi looked around and saw that the Gate of the Dead had expanded several times. Its original dilapidated appearance was no longer there. Although it was still made of wood, at least it looked like it was still there. Creak. Creak. Suddenly, the Gate of the Dead opened, and a strange aura of the netherworld spread out. The souls that were originally floating outside seemed to be attracted by something and began to walk into the Gate of the Dead and set foot on the road to the underworld. The road to the underworld was now 7 or 8 miles long. It was not crowded at all for 1,000 or 2,000 souls to walk through. Leng Shichi curiously followed behind. He wanted to see what would happen to these souls after they walked through the road to the underworld. However, he was a little disappointed not long after because these souls all stopped at the end of the road to the underworld. They did not walk onto the Bridge of Helplessness, just like before when they stopped outside the Gate of the Dead. Leng Shichi suddenly thought of something. He thought to himself, how far these souls can walk seems to be related to the level of the Mansion of the Dead. Thinking of this, he went directly to the end of the Mansion of the Dead, which was in front of the gate of the Fengdu Necropolis. The gate was still tightly shut. When he came here, he saw the conditions for the Mansion of the Dead to continue upgrading. Current level of the Mansion of the Dead, Tier 1. Conditions for upgrading the Mansion of the Dead, 1. Collect 1,000 souls. 178310000. 2. 10,000 system coins. Conditions for upgrading the Mansion of the Dead have been met. Would you like to spend 10,000 system coins to upgrade the Mansion of the Dead? Chapter 613. Seeing this system information, Leng Shiqi was secretly delighted. He did not know that he had unintentionally completed the requirements to continue upgrading the Mansion of the Dead. However, upgrading the Mansion of the Dead required him to spend another 10,000 system coins. This made his heart ache a little because he had already spent 5,000 system coins when he first upgraded the Mansion of the Dead. Now he only had a little more than 10,000 system coins left. He could not help but sigh. Although it was now easier to obtain system coins, there were still too many things that he needed to spend them on. However, he still needed to upgrade the Mansion of the Dead. He immediately chose yes. His system coins were instantly emptied. The Mansion of the Dead continued to expand once again. It only stopped when it was dozens of miles wide. It was already comparable to the size of a city. All the buildings had also become brick structures. The surroundings were also emitting traces of black gas. The air was also filled with a faint aura of death. There were also more than 1,000 souls slowly floating around. If a normal person were to enter this place, they would definitely be scared witless. At this time, the souls continued to move forward as Leng Shiqi had previously guessed. They stepped onto the Naraka bridge in front of them. At this moment, the Naraka bridge was no longer the tattered little wooden bridge from before. Instead, it was a gray stone bridge covered in fog. At the end of the Naraka bridge there was a small muddy pool. It was this small pool that attracted all the souls. They subconsciously cupped a handful of the pool water and drank it. After drinking the pool water, the souls would become thinner. It could also be said that they would become purer. Leng Shiqi stood next to the small pool. Could this be the legendary Mengpo's soup? However, just as he was wondering, he suddenly realized that he had a slight connection with the souls that had drunk the pool water. It was as if as long as he willed it, he could disperse their souls and prevent them from entering the cycle of reincarnation. What surprised him even more was that a new option had appeared in the territory interface. It was called Ghost Slave. Drinking Mengpo's soup meant that you had cut off everything from your previous life. From then on, you would be under the control of Leng Shiqi, the master of the Mansion of the Dead. He could decide the fate of these souls at will. For example, he could turn souls into his own ghost slaves for his own use. With the current level of the underworld, the Leng Shiqi can only have 2 ghost slaves at most, and the strength of a ghost slave is closely related to its cultivation when it was alive. After learning about this, Leng Shiqi immediately found Li Zhangtao's ghost. He tapped his finger lightly and a black light entered Li Zhangtao's soul. Immediately, Li Zhangtao's body was surrounded by black gas, which formed a set of ragged clothes. There was a large word slave on his chest. His originally sluggish expression became somewhat ferocious. In the end, he walked up to Leng Shiqi with a pious expression and knelt down heavily. Greetings, Nether Lord. Leng Shiqi looked at this unparalleled unity of heaven and man expert who was now kneeling in front of him. He whispered, Li Zhangtao, if you are alive, I will end your life. If you are dead, you will still be a slave. I have no deep enmity with you, but unfortunately you and I have our own masters, so you can't blame me. However, Li Zhangtao didn't seem to understand what Leng Shiqi was saying. He was still kneeling on the ground, motionless. Leng Shiqi said, Get up. Li Zhangtao stood up shakily. At this time, Leng Shiqi noticed that Li Zhangtao, who was now a ghost slave, was emitting an aura that was equivalent to a spirit cultivator in the spirit pulse realm. In terms of strength, it was greatly reduced. However, he also found some characteristics of ghost slaves from the system's information. Ghost slaves can also leave the underworld to carry out activities, but they can't be too far away from Leng Shiqi. Moreover, ghost slaves also have various strange abilities. For example, normal people can't see them with the naked eye. They can also possess other people's bodies. They are very similar to the ghosts in Leng Shiqi's ghost stories from his previous life. Leng Shiqi touched his chin. Although Li Zhangtao, this ghost slave, was not strong, he had some special abilities. If used well, it could have unexpected effects. At this time, the system's information popped up again. Ghost slave transformation successful. Please name the ghost slave. I still need a name? Leng Shiqi was stunned for a moment, but then he thought that Li Zhangtao was no longer Li Zhangtao after drinking Mengpo's soup. It was only right to change the name. He thought for a moment and said, Then let's call him Li Gue. Naming successful. Li Gue seemed to have sensed it. He knelt on the ground again as if he was grateful to Leng Shiqi for naming him. However, he seemed to be unable to speak. He could only make weak woo-woo sounds. Lung Shichi gently waved his hand and a force pulled Li Gui up. Li Gui, when I'm not in the underworld, I'll leave this place to you to patrol. Don't let other ghosts cause trouble. When Li Gui heard this, his head immediately nodded like garlic. Next, Lung Shichi walked directly to the gate of Fengdu City. He did not transform another ghost slave. Li Zhangtao, a master of the oneness of heaven and men realm, was turned into a ghost slave, so he only had the power of spiritual pulse realm left. Then, other masters of the gang spirit realm would be even weaker, so they would not occupy a place of ghost slave. He walked to the gate of Fengdu City, where the conditions for the next upgrade of the underworld were displayed. The current level of the territory of the underworld, Tier 2. Conditions for the upgrade of the territory of the underworld. 1. Recruit 2 members of the underworld, February 2nd. 2. Collect 3,000 souls, 03000. 3. 20,000 system coins. Seeing the conditions for the upgrade of the underworld from Tier 2 to Tier 3, Lung Shichi could not help but rub his head. First, he had to recruit 2 more members of the underworld. This was a little easier. He already had a preliminary candidate in mind. Moreover, he knew that after someone joined the underworld, he could control their life and death at any time. As a result, the range of people could be expanded. Therefore, the first condition was relatively simple. As for the second condition, it was a bit of a headache. Because he originally had more than 1,000 souls, but that did not count. Besides, if there were no disasters or difficulties, where could he get so many souls? Did he have to start a massacre himself? There was also the last condition. It was very simple and clear. It required 20,000 system coins. 20,000 system coins was naturally affordable for Lung Shichi now. However, the underworld was only at Tier 2 now. He could also see that every time the underworld upgraded, the cost of the system coins would double. In the future, this would increase to an astronomical figure. He immediately felt that he had to tighten his wallet again. Fortunately, this should be a problem that he would have to consider for a long time. Now, the most important thing was to seize the time to fully recover his primordial spirit and mental strength so that he could maintain his peak condition. Thinking of this, he left the underworld and closed his eyes to adjust his breath. Chapter 6:14. A few days later, Lung Shichi finally replenished his exhausted mental energy. During these few days, he had been recalling everything that had happened in the heavenly tomb. However, the more he thought about it, the more bizarre he felt and the more confused he became. Moreover, he didn't notice any changes in his body. Other than his cultivation being 1 level higher, there were no other changes. Although he didn't have any clues, he guessed that it might be related to the law of heaven and earth, that the mysterious figures in the heavenly tomb spoke of. Unfortunately, the law of heaven and earth was too far away from Lung Shichi. He didn't have the qualifications to pry into it at all, so he didn't think about it anymore. He would just treat it as gaining 2 levels of cultivation in the heavenly tomb, which would save him a lot of cultivation time. Lung Shichi walked out of the secret room and was about to find the Delta Origi. Who would have thought that he would meet Heifeichen, who was in a hurry? Sir, Steward Gao is here. It seems to be urgent. Heifeichen quickly said. He came personally? Lung Shichi raised his eyebrows. Normally, if Eunuch Gao had something to say to him, he would summon him. Now that Eunuch Gao came personally, it meant that the matter was indeed urgent. Lung Shichi used remnant wind lightning light steps and arrived at the meeting hall of Xingji Pavilion in a few breaths. Eunuch Gao was indeed sitting on the main seat. Greetings, master. No need to be so courteous. I came this time to tell you that I will bring you to participate in a grand event in a while. Eunuch Gao said solemnly. There was a hint of respect in his tone. Lung Shichi asked doubtfully, what grand event is it? Why does master place so much importance on it? Eunuch Gao said solemnly, the 70th birthday banquet of the current emperor. The 70th birthday banquet of the emperor. Lung Shichi couldn't help but raise his voice. He wasn't very surprised. Instead, he thought of many things in an instant. Everyone knew that the emperor of the Thunderfire dynasty, Lei Qingjun, didn't have much time left. All his thoughts were on making arrangements after his death so that the Thunderfire dynasty could continue to stabilize. How could he have the time to celebrate his 70th birthday? But Lei Qingjun still did it, so this matter was worth pondering. Lung Shichi guessed that Lei Qingjun might want to use this birthday banquet as an opportunity to do something. Eunuch Gao nodded and said, His Majesty's birthday banquet this time is a universal celebration. It is scheduled for half a year from now. At that time, all the upper echelons of the Thunderblaze dynasty, as well as the first-rate and top-notch sects, will enter the imperial capital to celebrate. Even the Starfall dynasty, the Northern Wei dynasty, and the Six Kingdoms of the Western region would send envoys over. When the time came, the entire imperial capital would be filled with experts and influential figures from all over the world. In order to maintain the stability of the imperial city, we, the Dark Thunder Guards, have a great responsibility. Everyone who enters the imperial city, regardless of their status or cultivation, must have their backgrounds thoroughly investigated. Absolutely do not allow anyone of unknown origin to enter. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi's expression also became serious. When that time came, there would probably be tens of thousands of people pouring into the imperial capital. Moreover, each of them was either holding a powerful fist or had a profound cultivation base. How could it be easy to investigate all of them? The most troublesome ones were the people from the Starfall dynasty and the Northern Wei dynasty. They were one of the three dynasties alongside the Thunderblaze dynasty, and they were constantly at war with each other. How could they behave themselves when they came to celebrate? Leng Shiqi could foresee that in the future, the imperial capital would truly become a turbulent undercurrent. The slightest carelessness would cause it to turn into ashes. But there's no need to worry too much. The Dark Thunder Guards will only be in charge of screening and monitoring in the dark. There will still be patrolling guards in the front. That's also a hot potato. Eunuch Gao sighed and said, "Moreover, His Majesty's birthday banquet is not a place where anyone can come as they wish. The invitations have already been sent out. We only need to investigate according to the list of names on the invitations." Leng Shiqi thought to himself that it would be much simpler in this way. However, it would require a large number of people to spread out such a large number of people. The people in the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guards were far from enough. Eunuch Gao naturally understood this. He said, "All the sects or forces on the invitations will be carefully investigated by the local Dark Thunder Guards. However, the most troublesome ones are the people from the other two dynasties and the 6 countries of the Western region. Especially this time, the envoys from the Starfall dynasty and the 6 countries of the Western region will enter the Thunderblaze dynasty from the Western Wilderness Prefecture. It can be said that the Western Wilderness Prefecture is the most important place. The inspector of the Western Wilderness Prefecture, Yu Ruifeng, can't take care of it all. The day before yesterday he asked me for more people. Those people in my family are all good at fighting for power and profit. However, only you can do this. In addition, you were born in the Dark Thunder Guards of the Western Wilderness Prefecture, so you are the most suitable person to go there. As long as you can smoothly bring the envoys from the 6 countries of the Western region and the Starfall dynasty to the imperial capital, it will be a great merit. Even if you take the position of deputy director with the cultivation of Gang Spirit Realm, no one will dare to say anything." Leng Shiqi understood that Eunuch Gao was asking him to make a merit. However, this merit was not so easy to get. Although the 6 countries of the Western region were called the 6 countries of the Western region, in fact, these 6 small countries were sandwiched between the Thunderblaze dynasty and the Starfall dynasty. The total area of the 6 countries was equivalent to the size of 5 or 6 prefectures. They existed completely as a buffer zone between the two dynasties. Because of their small size, these 6 countries often attacked each other. The hatred between them had been accumulated for many years. It could be imagined that it was impossible for the envoys of the 6 countries to stay together. This matter alone was enough to give people a headache, not to mention that the Starfall dynasty would also send people here. Among the 3 dynasties in the world, the Starfall dynasty was the most powerful, had the most profound foundation, and had the most vast territory. The Starfall dynasty had been passed down for thousands of years, more than twice as long as the Thunderblaze dynasty. Its national strength was very strong and it had always been ambitious. From the name of the dynasty, it could be seen that the Starfall dynasty had the ambition to swallow the whole Starfall continent. Lei Qingjun was critically ill, but he wanted to hold a birthday banquet. The Starfall dynasty naturally came with the intention of sounding him out. They wanted to see how long Lei Qingjun could hold on. Let's see who might take over his position. Most importantly, it was extremely likely that the Starfall dynasty would secretly plant a few spies in the Thunderblaze dynasty during this process, and Leng Shiqi had to be on guard against all of this. So, this mission was absolutely not easy. However, what Eunuch Gao said was right. If Leng Shiqi could complete this mission perfectly, he would be rewarded with merits and could be promoted to one of the 36 deputy directors of the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters. He would become a powerful figure. So he said loudly, "I will do my best and will never disgrace you, but the manpower, in terms of manpower, you can take away all the guards under your command. I have already informed you, Ruifeng. All the Dark Thunder Guards in the Western Desert Province are at your disposal. In addition, I have also specially assigned an assistant to you. Speaking until here, eunuch Gao clapped his hands and a figure walked out. Leng Shiqi turned to look and felt that the figure was a little familiar. Chapter 6:15. The person who came looked like a young man. His face was pale and he looked a little like eunuch Gao. Leng Shiqi knew that this person must be someone from the palace. He suddenly remembered that when he first came to the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard to meet eunuch Gao, it was this person who was talking to eunuch Gao. At that time, the two of them just met face to face and didn't even speak a word. Eunuch Gao pointed to the man and said, "He is the most outstanding one among my many adopted sons. His name is Gao Yi and he is at the peak of Gang Spirit Realm. He will go to the Western Wilderness Prefecture with you this time." Gao Yi smiled, but his smile looked a bit fake. "I often hear my adoptive father mention Brother Lu. Now I see you with my own eyes. No wonder you are the head of the elite society." Leng Shiqi sneered secretly. It seemed that Gao Yi didn't remember that they had met once. Presumably, Gao Yi didn't take him seriously at that time. He made an obeisance and said a few polite words. Eunuch Gao continued, "This mission is headed by Lu Xingji. Gao Yi, you have to assist him wholeheartedly. In addition, your most important task is to find out the identity and background of all the people who enter the territory. Don't get into conflicts with the delegation easily. Even if you find something fishy, don't be impulsive. It's better to leave it to the people who receive the delegation, or let the discipline department of the Western Wilderness Prefecture do it. Do you understand?" Leng Shiqi and Gao Yi's hearts were as clear as a mirror. How could they not understand eunuch Gao's meaning? Once you make a move against the envoys of the 6 kingdoms of the Western region or the Starfall dynasty, no matter what the reason is, then you will naturally have to bear all the consequences. Therefore they couldn't be blamed easily. They just needed to take credit. I understand. Good. You all go to prepare. Tomorrow we will set off for the Western Wilderness Prefecture. Eunuch Gao left in a hurry. It seemed that the birthday banquet made him very busy. After eunuch Gao left, Gao Yi stopped smiling and said, "I often hear the name of Brother Lu in the palace. As the head of the elite society, you shocked the Dark Thunder Guards and defeated the Extermination Thunder Alliance. I really admire you for becoming the eunuch in such a short time." Leng Shiqi could hear a bit of jealousy in his tone. He laughed in his heart. This Gao Yiren was two-faced. It was really the style of someone in the palace. Since eunuch Gao sent him in, as long as he behaved himself, Leng Shiqi didn't want to pay much attention to him. However, Gao Yi didn't seem to think that way. A faint cold underworld chi seeped out of his body as he said, "I've long heard that Brother Lu's strength is extraordinary. I'm itching to learn from you." Leng Shiqi's eyes narrowed. He could see that Gao Yi's cultivation technique was also the Cold Nether Treasure Manual. It was no wonder that people who knew that he had cultivated this technique thought that he was also someone from the palace. Gao Yi snorted lightly and a bone-piercing cold nether energy appeared. Incomparably sharp icicles carrying traces of nether energy shot out from Gao Yi, rapidly spreading out. In the blink of an eye, Xingji Pavilion had become a dead zone. Leng Shiqi also released a dense amount of cold nether energy and used the same spiritual technique. This was the spiritual technique of the Cold Nether Treasure Book, Cold Nether Hell. The two cold nether hells collided with each other. Endless cold energy and nether energy wreaked havoc, especially at the intersection. The ground cracked and the sky darkened. Leng Shiqi's cold nether hell was gradually suppressing Gao Yi. Gao Yi's eyes suddenly became gloomy. His cultivation was clearly several levels higher than Leng Shiqi's. He had also cultivated the cold nether hell for a long time and had already reached the large success stage. He didn't understand. What was the difference between him and Leng Shiqi? Gao Yi didn't know that Leng Shiqi's cold nether hell was at the great perfection stage. Moreover, Leng Shiqi cultivated the heavenly cycle star god art, which was a fusion of many high-level cultivation methods. His foundation was not weaker than Gao Yi's. Adding on the strength of his body, it was easy for him to suppress Gao Yi. However, he didn't just want to suppress him. Then Leng Shiqi's mind moved. The dark cold nether hell was dyed with layers of demonic crimson. All of the ice instantly turned into crimson ice crystals. Leng Shiqi's cold nether hell strength immediately increased. It rushed into Gao Yi's cold nether hell like a whale and tore a huge hole in it. This was the result of Leng Shiqi fusing the crimson ice crystal technique into the cold nether hell, crimson nether hell. Leng Shiqi hadn't used this technique since fusing it. It was a good time to test it out on Gao Yi. It seemed that the power was quite good. What? Gao Yi exclaimed. He immediately sent out another palm. Cold nether energy howled and chilling wind blew. Several palm shadows fell and barely blocked Leng Shiqi's attack. However, he was forced back more than 10 steps. Leng Shiqi didn't continue to attack. Instead he looked at Gao Yi quietly. Gao Yi also stopped, but his face didn't look good. However, he still smiled and said, "Brother Lu's strength is really tyrannical. I admire you. By the way, I'm going to the Western Wilderness Prefecture to get some credit. I'll listen to your arrangements. If there's anything you need me to do, just tell me." After a simple fight, Gao Yi, a spirit cultivator at the peak of spirit astral realm, was completely suppressed by Leng Shiqi. Although they were not fighting to the death, Gao Yi could see from this that if Leng Shiqi wanted to kill him, it didn't seem to be particularly difficult. Therefore he completely put away his thoughts. "I don't dare." Leng Shiqi quickly waved his hand and said, "You and I are both working for Master. We help each other, we help each other." After all, Gao Yi was still the adopted son of eunuch Gao. Leng Shiqi had to give him some face. At the same time he also tried his current strength in the fight with Gao Yi. After he broke through the middle stage of spirit astral realm, all his strength became stronger. Even if he faced the peak of spirit astral realm, he could completely dominate. Then he sent Gao Yi out while talking and laughing. Leng Shiqi didn't believe that Gao Yi's purpose was so simple, but he was too lazy to care too much. As long as he didn't mess up his business, it was fine. He asked He Feichen to gather all the guards. Soon all the 5 War Thunder Guards were gathered. Including Feng Xiaomo and himself, Leng Shiqi now had the high-end fighting strength of 7 spirit astral realm cultivators. There were also dozens of spirit cultivators of spirit astral realm. This kind of fighting strength was far beyond the second-rate forces, and could even compete with the first-rate forces. Leng Shiqi told everyone about the mission as quickly as possible. After everyone heard it, the atmosphere suddenly became heavy. If they were asked to fight purely with the enemy, they were very good at it. But this time, their goal was the envoys of the 6 countries of the Western region and the Starfall dynasty. Those people couldn't be touched casually, otherwise, a little carelessness would lead to a disaster. Leng Shiqi looked at everyone's expression and said coldly, "What, are you afraid? The mission this time is indeed not simple. I have always believed in one sentence, and that is, difficulties and opportunities coexist. Just like the last time when I wiped out the Thunder Alliance, the whole Dark Thunder Guard's headquarters didn't believe that I could complete it, but what was the result? I not only completed it, but also won a great victory and directly sat in the position of the Imperial Supervisor. I won't say much nonsense. If you want to have a meteoric rise, if you want to climb up, then rush forward with me. In addition, my subordinates never raise trash. If anyone thinks they are trash, they can leave now. I will never stop them." Chapter 616. When everyone heard the first half of the speech, their blood was boiling, but when they heard the last sentence, they all shivered. Even though they had not been in contact with Leng Shiqi for a long time, they were very clear about his misdeeds. If anyone really dared to walk out now, only a corpse would be left. Everyone immediately shouted in unison, "This subordinate will do his best to share Sir's worries." Leng Shiqi waved his hand and ordered, "Very good, I will give you half a day to prepare. Tomorrow you will directly teleport to the Western Desolate Province." Everyone retreated one after another. Leng Shiqi also planned to prepare, but a voice came from outside. "Greetings, Miss Lian Yi. Congratulations, Miss Lian Yi's cultivation has improved again. Miss Lian Yi is here to see Sir Lu, right? Please come in." Leng Shiqi's footsteps paused. He turned to look outside and saw Lian Yi walking over. He could not help but think, what is she doing here again? Nothing good. He still remembered that last time, in order to help Lian Yi get rid of the 9th Prince Lei Haoqing, he even did something like assassinating a prince. What was she planning this time? However, Lian Yi was after all the adopted daughter of the Dark Thunder Guard's commander, Heavenly Sovereign Black Flame. For this relationship he should still welcome her. "Miss Lian Yi, long time no see. It hasn't been long. You don't seem to want to see me?" Lian Yi narrowed her eyes. Leng Shiqi immediately shook his head and said, "What are you saying? Miss Lian Yi, may I know why you have come here?" "Boring." Lian Yi curled her lips and said, "I came to thank you. Last time, when you went to assassinate Lei Haoqing, I did not expect that it would cause a series of disturbances. Fortunately, it did not implicate you. However, the effect was quite good. Since then, Lei Haoqing has been holed up and has not caused any trouble for me. As for the shield you mentioned, there is no need for that. This is what I should do. There is no need to thank me. Actually, there is absolutely no need for me. It is just that father insisted that I come." Lian Yi gave Leng Shiqi a strange look and continued, "Father, he wants to see you." "What?" Leng Shiqi was shocked. Heavenly Venerable Black Flame wanted to see him? In Leng Shiqi's impression, the commander of the Dark Thunder Guards, Heavenly Lord He Yen, was extremely mysterious. Not to mention him, even the people who had been in the Dark Thunder Guards headquarters for several years had never seen Heavenly Lord He Yen appear. But now, Heavenly Venerable Black Flame actually wanted to see him? For a time, all sorts of thoughts flashed through Leng Shiqi's mind. He couldn't think of why Empyrean Black Flame wanted to see him, but it shouldn't be anything bad. I also find it very strange. Foster father rarely takes the initiative to meet people. You can be considered to have hit the jackpot. Lian Yi said sourly. Leng Shiqi smiled. That's all thanks to Miss Lian Ye's recommendation. May I know where the Grand Commander is and when can we go see him? I don't know where foster father is, but you can see him right now. Lian Yi suddenly said something that didn't make sense. Soon after, a black flame bloomed in her palm. Suddenly the world changed. Leng Shiqi instantly arrived in a black flame hell. In the sky, a giant face slowly appeared. A face completely composed of countless black flames condensed. When the giant eyes opened, Leng Shiqi felt a terrifying pressure fall on him like Mount Tai. Leng Shiqi's face immediately paled. All the muscles in his body seemed to be squeezed to the point of bursting. He almost couldn't stand still. He let out a low shout and instantly activated the wild evil demon blood beast body. An ancient, evil and ominous aura filled the air. At the same time he used the throbbing pulse of the earth. The powerful anti-gravity force propped up a curtain of light to make him feel better. Suddenly, the pressure disappeared without a trace and a deep voice rang out, "You do have some skills." Leng Shiqi cupped his fists towards the sky and said, "Greetings, Grand Commander." Heavenly Sage He Yen suddenly asked, "Did you kill Li Zhangtao?" Hearing this, Leng Shiqi's heart tightened. He didn't know what the relationship between Heavenly Sage He Yen and the Li family was, and he couldn't hear anything from the other's tone. However, he still raised his head and said, "Yes." "Did you also kill Li Xinhong and Li Xinqi?" "Yes." There were very few people who knew about the death of the Li brothers. It seemed that Li Jueqing might have sent a message to Heavenly Sage He Yen. Leng Shiqi didn't deny it. He thought that Heavenly Sage He Yen would blame him, but unexpectedly, Heavenly Sage He Yen said 3 words. "Good job." Leng Shiqi. Hearing these 3 words, Leng Shiqi instantly thought of many things. He was now sure that even the Grand Commander didn't want the Li family to continue taking root in the Dark Thunder Guard. Especially in this turbulent time, once the new emperor ascended the throne, the Li family would have the opportunity to seize more positions. At that time, it would be even more difficult to solve this problem. Leng Shiqi killed Li Zhangtao in Ningyang County and took away the Li family's money tree. It could be said that he cut off one of the Li family's arms. He also killed the Li brothers in the Heavenly Tomb, which could be considered as breaking the Li family's foundation. Right now, the Li clan had Li Jueqing and several experts who were at the unity of heaven and man realms supporting them. The youngest generation also had good potential. However, the problem was that when Li Jueqing's generation had either aged or died, the younger generation had yet to grow to the point where they could support the Li clan. Then, at that time, the Li family would fall into an extremely dangerous situation where there was a shortage of manpower. Therefore, although Leng Shiqi only killed 3 people from the Li family, these 3 people were very important to the Li family. Leng Shiqi himself didn't expect that he only wanted to complete Eunuch Gao's mission and avenge himself. In the end, he went along with the Grand Commander's wishes. It could be said that he unintentionally planted a willow tree and it became a shade. Heavenly Sage He Yen reminded him, however, Li Jueqing is not magnanimous. You have to be careful. Leng Shiqi had already experienced Li Jueqing's magnanimity. However, Heavenly Sage He Yen did remind him that his trip to the Western Desolate County was not a secret. Li Jueqing would naturally know. If Leng Shiqi stayed in the imperial capital, Li Jueqing might not be able to kill him. However, if he left the imperial capital and went to the borderlands, where the emperor was far away, Li Jueqing would very likely secretly attack him. Therefore he had always been very vigilant. Then again, did Heavenly Sage He Yen want to see him just to ask him this? There must be something else. Sure enough, Heavenly Sage He Yen continued, "Your trip to the Western Desolate County is not only to smoothly welcome the envoys of the Starfall dynasty and the 6 kingdoms of the Western region. There is also an even more important mission." At the end, Heavenly Sage He Yan's tone was a bit heavy. This made Leng Shiqi feel that the mission was definitely not simple. "Please tell me, Grand Commander. You also need to secretly sow discord between the 6 kingdoms of the Western region and the Starfall dynasty, especially between the Golden Tribe and the Tuoba Kingdom. In addition, that girl Lian Yi will go with you." The 6 kingdoms of the Western region were the Zhu Lu Kingdom, the Beilu Kingdom, the Jushur Kingdom, the Golden Tribe, and the Tuoba Kingdom. These 6 small kingdoms constantly had friction with each other, and they were also on good terms with the Thunderblaze dynasty and the Starfall dynasty. Due to their geographical location, the Zhulu Kingdom and the Beilu Kingdom were leaning towards the Thunderblaze dynasty, while the Golden Tribe and the Tuoba Kingdom were on good terms with the Starfall dynasty. As for the Jushur Kingdom and the Great Yuezhi Kingdom, they were located in the center of the 6 kingdoms of the western region. They were also the 2 strongest kingdoms. Leng Shiqi listened to Heavenly Sage He Yan's words. It seemed that he wanted the Golden Tribe, the Tuoba Kingdom, and the Starfall dynasty to become enemies. If he could really do this, the Starfall dynasty would definitely be flustered for a while. Perhaps they would not have so much time to deal with the Thunderblaze dynasty. However, the problem was that instigating the relationship between the 3 parties conflicted with Leng Shiqi's mission. The mission given to him by eunuch Gao was to investigate the innocence of the people who came to celebrate the birthday, and secretly protect the diplomatic group as they entered the imperial capital. However, if Leng Shiqi instigated the relationship between the 3 parties, it would be hard to avoid some trouble. At that time, it would be easier said than done to smoothly enter the imperial capital. This mission was not simple. However, what made Leng Shiqi puzzled was, why would Lian Yi follow him? It was not that Leng Shiqi looked down on her, but that Lian Yi's cultivation was still at the early stage of the spirit aperture realm. Any of the war thunder guards under him had a higher cultivation than her, so there was no need for her to fight. As for ability and strategy, Leng Shiqi admitted that Lian Yi was indeed more mature than before. However, compared to those experienced Dark Thunder guards, she was still far from being comparable. Bringing Lian Yi with him was the same as bringing a burden. Of course, he could not say this out loud. No matter how difficult it was in his heart, he still said, "Commander, please be at ease. This subordinate will definitely complete the mission." Since the commander had personally spoken, there was no reason for him to refuse. Moreover, whether it was strength or influence, he had already formed his wings. It was not impossible for him to complete the mission. "I didn't expect you to agree so easily." Heavenly Sage He Yan said, "I will be frank. Lian Yi will go with you to accumulate some merits." At this moment, Leng Shiqi bitterly smiled in his heart. Eunuch Gao and the commander were both stuffing people with him to gain merits. Weren't they too confident in him? From another point of view, Lian Yi was the commander's adopted daughter, yet she still wanted to accumulate merits. It could be seen that the commander also attached great importance to the rules of the Dark Thunder Guards. Otherwise, he could have just directly arranged a position for Lian Yi. There was no need to go through so much trouble. Heavenly Sage He Yan continued, "I see that you have a heavenly strange flame in your body. You know the power of heavenly variance the best. If you can successfully return from the Western Desolate Province, I can give you a piece of information. A piece of information that records the location of heavenly variance." Whoosh! Leng Shiqi suddenly raised his head, his eyes revealing undisguised joy. He was well aware of the power of heavenly variance. His crimson gold earth dragon flame had yet to meet a match. If he could obtain another heavenly variant, no matter what attribute it was, it would definitely cause his strength to explosively rise once more. However, before Leng Shiqi could speak, the world of black flames suddenly began to disperse. Heavenly Sage He Yan said, "The time has come. I await your good news." Immediately after, the scene in front of Leng Shiqi changed, and he once again saw the familiar Xingji pavilion. He said to Lian Yi, who was still waiting on the side, "Miss Lian Yi, prepare to go to the Western Desolate Province." Chapter 617. West Wilderness Prefecture, Hanzhou City. At this moment, there were 3 people wearing the same clothes standing in front of the gate of Dark Thunder residence. Everyone had a worried look on their faces. Their cultivation was not weak. The leader was at the middle stage of Gang Spirit Realm, and the 2 behind him were at the late stage of Spirit Aperture Realm. At this moment, a person behind him said, "Elder Ji, are you sure it's here?" Elder Ji nodded solemnly, "I didn't want to believe it at first, but I've confirmed it several times. It can't be wrong. But this is Dark Thunder Guard. It's not good for the sect to offend Dark Thunder Guard rashly." "I know," Elder Ji growled, "but the Wind Thunder Divine Lux Stone is the sect's most valuable treasure. Without this item, those disciples will not be able to cultivate the highest grade of cultivation technique. If this continues, the Wind Thunder Tower will be completely destroyed in a few decades." It turned out that the leader was Ji Dong, the elder of Wind Thunder Tower, a second-rate sect in West Wilderness Prefecture. After Leng Shiqi and 9 Leave joined hands to steal the Wind Thunder Godly Lux Stone, Ji Dong had been tracking the whereabouts of the Wind Thunder Godly Lux Stone. Later, when the array in Wind Thunder Tower to sense the godly luck stone collapsed, Jidong thought that the godly luck stone might have been destroyed. But he didn't give up, or rather, he still had a trace of hope in his heart. So, for a long time he set up a small array and kept looking for the place where the godly luck stone disappeared. Until a few days ago he finally found it. That was Hanzhou City's Dark Thunder residence. At first, Jidong thought that he had found the wrong place. But after many confirmations, the last breath of the godly luck stone had indeed disappeared here. Jidong also remembered that Lu Xingji, the great supervisor of North Prefecture, also participated in the demon extermination assembly and went to the treasure pavilion. He was more or less suspicious. If it was somewhere else, Jidong would have rushed in directly. But this was Dark Thunder Guard. Even Wind Thunder Tower didn't dare to provoke Dark Thunder Guard. After all, no one wanted to be watched in secret every day, which made them unable to eat or sleep well. They were afraid that they would be caught if they made a mistake. However, the godly luck stone was too important to Wind Thunder Tower. It could even affect the rise and fall of the sect. He had to come and ask clearly. After struggling for a while, Jidong still decided to go in and ask, which led to the current scene. The two guards in front of Dark Thunder Manor saw Jidong and the others standing there for a long time. Finally, they couldn't help but ask, "Who are you people? Why are you loitering in front of Dark Thunder Manor?" Jidong tried his best to calm himself down. He smiled and said, "I am Elder Jidong of the Wind and Thunder Tower. I am here to seek an audience with the great supervisor, Lord Lu. May I trouble you to inform him?" When the two guards heard this, they silently looked at each other. One of them said, "Lord Lu is not in the residence. Please go back." "The two of you," this old man has specifically asked around. "Lord Lu hasn't shown his face for a long time. I'm guessing that he must be in his residence." Jidong was still smiling as he said, "Please go in and report that this old man indeed has an extremely important matter to discuss with Lord Lu." The guard immediately said coldly, "If he's not here, then he's not here. There's no need for us to lie to you." Jidong knew that if he didn't use some tricks today, he wouldn't be able to enter the gate. Suddenly, the majestic Wind and Thunder spiritual gang rose around him with extraordinary momentum. The two guards were only in the spirit transformation realm. They were directly forced to retreat by the spiritual gang. The two of them were suppressed by the horrible momentum and couldn't even call for help. Right at this moment, a strand of black shadow flashed by swiftly. It was a sword light, and it was like a venomous snake that was hidden in the darkness. Jidong also saw the sword light. A trace of disdain flashed in his heart. The sword light was extremely fast, but it was obviously not in the gang's spirit realm. It posed no threat to him. However, at the next moment, his face suddenly changed, because the black shadow tore apart the Wind and Thunder spiritual gang around him. Although Jidong didn't use his full strength and just released his momentum to force Lu Xingji out, spiritual gang was spiritual gang after all. How could it be broken by someone in the spiritual aperture realm? He turned over his palm. Suddenly the Wind and Thunder roared. The violent spiritual gang overflowed and slapped the black shadow away fiercely. However, the black shadow continuously dissipated the force in the air and finally landed steadily. He was not hurt by Jidong. And this person was Qin Jianqian. "Stop." An old voice came. Guan Feihong rushed out with Qiu Qing, Qiao Qian and the others. They saw the scene of Qin Jianqian being slapped away and they were all furious. Guan Feihong stared at Jidong. He recognized Jidong's identity. He cupped his fist and said, "So it's Elder Ji. The Wind and Thunder Tower is located in the North region, but Elder Ji came to my Dark Thunder Mansion to hurt people. Do you not put the Dark Thunder Guards in your eyes?" The threat in his words was very obvious. The Wind and Thunder Tower was under the supervision of the Dark Thunder Mansion in Hanzhou City. Jidong dared to come to the Dark Thunder Mansion to make a move. Did he eat a bear's heart and leopard's guts? Jidong withdrew his spiritual gang and said, "I don't mean anything else. I just want to see Lord Lu." Guan Feihong frowned. Only they knew that Leng Shiqi had entered the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guards. Outsiders didn't know about this matter. Because Leng Shiqi was still the supervisor of the North region, in the eyes of those spirit cultivation sects, Leng Shiqi might be in seclusion and didn't show up. In fact, Leng Shiqi's prestige was not small. He was the most famous in the Shantai region and even in the imperial capital. But the West Wilderness region was located in the western border, which was too far away. If one didn't specifically inquire about Leng Shiqi, one wouldn't know. So Guan Feihong said, "Lord Lu is indeed not here." But Jidong thought that Guan Feihong was perfunctory. His spiritual gang surged around him and his eyes became cold. If I don't see Lu Xingji today, I won't give up. Facing the pressure of a spiritual gang realm master, Guan Feihong was not afraid at all. He said in a low voice, Elder Ji, you should think about the consequences of offending the Dark Thunder Guards. Can your Wind and Thunder Tower bear the consequences? I can't care so much. I have to. However, before he could finish his sentence, 5 auras that were no weaker than Ji Dong suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Everyone quickly turned around and saw hundreds of figures coming quickly. The leaders were all in the spiritual gang realm. Behind them, there were dozens of spiritual aperture realm cultivators and hundreds of spiritual pulse realm cultivators. Everyone was shocked. When did so many strong cultivators appear in Hangzhou City? These people could easily annihilate a second-rate sect. But immediately, Guan Feihong and Ji Dong's expressions changed greatly. Guan Feihong was surprised and happy, while Ji Dong's face was black. Because when the group of experts came closer, they saw that they were wearing the clothes of the Dark Thunder Guards. Even though their clothes were slightly different from Guan Feihong and Qin Jianxian, they were still very similar. In the Thunder Flame dynasty, only the Dark Lightning Guards would wear this kind of clothing. Ji Dong was stunned. He didn't understand where these experts came from. Even if all the Dark Thunder Guards in the West Wilderness region were gathered together, there might not be so many. He didn't understand, but he knew that he was in danger. The people who came here were naturally the 5 War Thunder Guards under Leng Shiqi, as well as many secret Thunder Guards who were in charge of intelligence investigation. They didn't expect that they would encounter someone who came to trouble the Dark Thunder Guards as soon as they arrived in Hangzhou City. Elder Huang and the other spiritual gang realm cultivators all snorted and instantly blocked Ji Dong with various spiritual gang realms. Their eyes were cold. The rest of the hundreds of experts also surrounded the 3 of them, eyeing them covetously. The 2 spiritual aperture realm disciples of the Wind Thunder Tower had never seen such a scene before. They were scared out of their wits. At this moment, a slight sound of footsteps was heard, and all the Dark Thunder Guards silently opened up a path, and a figure walked towards them. This person was wearing a purple cloak and a feathered official hat. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. Seeing this person's face, Guan Feihong, Qiu Cheng, Qiao Qian and the others' pupils shrank and then turned into boundless joy. When this person stood still, the Dark Thunder Guards of Hangzhou City and the Dark Thunder Guards of the imperial capital all knelt down and shouted, "Greetings, my lord!" Chapter 6:18. In front of the gate of the Dark Thunder Mansion, many people knelt down in an instant, leaving only 4 people standing. Ji Dong looked at this scene in a daze. Wasn't the person standing in front of him Lu Xingji whom he had to see? He was really not in the mansion. Lu Xingji. As soon as Ji Dong opened his mouth, several inspectors of Gang Spirit Realm took action at the same time. All kinds of Gang Spirit Realm burst out and pressed on Ji Dong. Ji Dong was shocked and quickly resisted, but he was a spiritual caster. If he was well prepared, his combat power would be infinite. But how could he resist the sudden attack of 5 masters of Gang Spirit Realm? He was injured by several people in an instant, and a trace of blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. One of the inspectors shouted, "How dare you call His Excellency's name directly? How dare you? Don't be so irritable. Elder Ji and I are old acquaintances." But Leng Shiqi waved his hand and said very calmly, "Elder Ji, you insist on seeing me. What is the matter?" Ji Dong forcibly suppressed the spiritual power that was about to go berserk in his body. Seeing Leng Shiqi's attitude seemed to be easy to talk to, he cupped his hands and said, "Lord Lu, I'll be frank. My Wind and Thunder Tower's most precious treasure, the Wind and Thunder Stone, has been stolen. You should know this." Leng Shiqi nodded and did not deny it, but he had already guessed Ji Dong's intention. "In that case it's easy to say. I perceived through the formation that the Wind and Thunder Stone finally disappeared in the Dark Thunder Mansion. Lord Lu, please tell me the truth. Is the Wind and Thunder Stone in your hands?" After he finished speaking, he looked straight at Leng Shiqi, as if he wanted to see something from Leng Shiqi's expression. However, what he never expected was that Leng Shiqi suddenly took action. Suddenly, the strange Nirvana wind burst out, and a terrible storm suddenly formed, sending out visible ripples. Even the spiritual power of heaven and earth was stirred up. Whirlwind. Ji Dong didn't expect that Leng Shiqi would suddenly take action. What shocked him even more was that Leng Shiqi's power was even stronger than that of several Gang Spirit Realm masters just now. However, he also felt a trace of the Wind and Thunder God's Luck Stone from the Leng Shiqi's Nirvana Remnant Wind. The Wind Thunder Divine Luck Stone was indeed obtained by him. Ji Dong didn't have time to form a seal, but he tapped the space between his eyebrows. With a wung sound, a fierce wind suddenly appeared, and an astral wind spiritual array appeared out of thin air, protecting him firmly within. The power of nirvana in the nirvana remnant wind was constantly eroding the power of the formation. At the same time, Leng Shiqi raised his hand. Dark clouds covered the sky and thunder exploded. An incomparably gigantic lightning hand descended, and its might seemed as if it wanted to kill Jidong directly. Amethyst lightning hand. Jidong's eyes widened. It was already his limit to block the nirvana remnant wind. How could he block the sky-covering thunder hand? In a hurry he had to take out a flying shuttle. Unfortunately, before he had time to use it, Leng Shiqi pointed out a finger. Starlight flashed, and the blood thunder star shattering finger directly smashed the flying shuttle. Jidong suddenly felt desperate. Boom! With a loud noise, the giant lightning hand smashed Jidong's formation and smashed him into a pile of meat paste. Jidong, who had cultivated the power of wind and thunder for decades, finally died in the hands of the power of wind and thunder, which was a kind of irony. As for the two disciples of spiritual aperture realm he brought, they had already been killed by several inspectors. Guan Feihong and the others had been in a state of confusion. They had been enjoying a lot of resources these days, so their cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. Guan Feihong and Qiu Qing were both in spiritual aperture realm, and Xiao Qian was in the late stage of spiritual pulse realm. But Jidong, a master of gang spirit realm, was still in existence that they had to look up to. Even Qin Jianxin, who had strong fighting capacity, could not get close to Jidong, which showed that Jidong was not weak. However, an expert of this level was killed by Leng Shiqi in less than 3 moves. Then how strong was Leng Shiqi? After more than a year, Leng Shiqi's strength had completely exceeded their imagination. At this time, a person beside Leng Shiqi suddenly asked for orders. How dare the Wind and Thunder Tower offend your excellency? It is really audacious. Inspector Gao Ting of the 32 guards, please kill the Wind and Thunder Tower. He Feichen was secretly annoyed. In fact, he also thought that this was a good opportunity to show off, but his mouth was one step too slow. Leng Shiqi did not speak. He just waved his hand gently as if he was driving away a fly beside him. Gao Ting was immediately overjoyed and hurriedly left with the 32 guards. Looking at Guan Feihong and the others who were still in a daze, Leng Shiqi could not help laughing. He was not as arrogant and domineering as when he killed a master of gang spirit realm. What? Don't you want to let me in? Guan Feihong came to his senses and hurriedly led Leng Shiqi and the others in. Your Excellency, long time no see. You are finally back. I also have an important task this time. The Dark Thunder Guards in North County need to be mobilized. Later, you go and tell all the Dark Thunder Guards to gather in Hanzhou City. Leng Shiqi said as he walked. Yes, Your Excellency. Has anything happened in Dark Thunder Mansion during this time? The reason why Leng Shiqi did not go directly to West Wilderness City but came to Hanzhou City first was that he wanted to see if everything was normal here. After all, half of the people here were killers of the blood-robed pavilion. After such a long time, he was afraid that someone would reveal some flaws. Guan Feihong thought for a moment and said, Your Excellency, although you haven't shown up for a long time, North County has been peaceful recently and there has been no trouble. The only tricky thing is that there are no masters of gang spirit realm in the Dark Thunder Guards in North County, so some things can't be done smoothly. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi knew that there was no accident, which made him feel a little relieved. He said, Don't worry, I will pay attention to this matter. While talking, they walked into the meeting hall. Leng Shiqi sat on the jade chair, and several masters of gang spirit realm stood on both sides. However, Feng Shamo and Xuanhuan were not here. After they entered West Wilderness County, they went to the branch of the blood-robed pavilion. Leng Shiqi's task relied heavily on intelligence, so he had to rely on the intelligence network of the blood-robed pavilion. Gao Yi and Lian Yi were not his subordinates, but went directly to West Wilderness City. In fact, he came to Hanzhou City for a second purpose, which was also related to the task given to him by eunuch Gao. He asked Guan Feihong, How is the business of the families in those cities recently? The business he was talking about was smuggling. Under his tacit consent, dozens of families of various sizes were secretly transporting prohibited goods from the 6 countries of the western region to the Thunder Flame dynasty. Guan Feihong was well aware of this. He smiled and said, Don't worry, my lord. The business is going well. Right now, our Dark Thunder Manor has accumulated a large amount of resources. I was thinking of sending them to you in 2 days. Leng Shiqi narrowed his eyes and pondered, tapping his fingers on the jade chair. During this time, no one dared to disturb him. After a short while he said, Very good. Send another message, tell all the families in North County to come to Hangzhou City. Tell them that I want to invite everyone to a banquet. However, when Qiu Qing, Xiao Qian and the others heard the word banquet, they couldn't help but shudder. They remembered clearly that every time Leng Shiqi invited someone to a banquet, blood would be spilled. Although they couldn't guess what Leng Shiqi was going to do this time, they knew that people would die again. Chapter 619. The Western Wilderness Prefecture was not peaceful these days. The reason was that the second-rate sect, Wind and Thunder Tower, was destroyed by a group of mysterious experts at lightning speed. The Wind and Thunder Tower had attracted a lot of attention in the Western Wilderness Prefecture because of the last demon slaughtering conference. Although most people were laughing at it, it was undeniable that the Wind and Thunder Tower was a powerful second-rate sect. But such a sect had been completely slaughtered in half a day. Anyone who received this information was extremely shocked. It should be known that there were no top sects in the Western Desolate Province. There were only a few first-rate factions. However, these first-rate factions did not take action. Who had the ability to destroy the Wind Lightning Tower so easily? After many inquiries, people found out that the people who killed the Wind and Thunder Tower were from the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guards. And the news that Leng Shiqi killed Ji Dong at the gate of the Dark Thunder Guards was not kept a secret. Soon it was spread out. Combining the two things, people finally understood what was going on. Many people thought that the Wind and Thunder Tower was seeking death. They even dared to offend the Dark Thunder Guards. But more people were shocked by Leng Shiqi's identity and strength. In their impression, Leng Shiqi, the supervisor of the Northern Wilderness, was still at the middle stage of the spiritual aperture realm. When did he suddenly reach the Gang Spirit realm? And he killed Ji Dong with a flip of his hand. Even if he was at the late stage of the Gang Spirit realm, he might not be able to kill him so easily. In addition, some people judged Leng Shiqi's identity from his clothes. He was the supervisor of the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guards. Although the major sects of the Western Wasteland Province were far away from the Imperial City, and some would never go to the Imperial City in their entire lives, even if they had never eaten pork, they would still have seen pigs run. That eunuch envoy was an important figure who was half a level higher than even a patrol envoy. Leng Shiqi came to the Western Wilderness Prefecture with such an identity. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was the king of darkness of the Western Wilderness Prefecture. But when did he become the supervisor of the Imperial eunuch? Only then did some people start to inquire about Leng Shiqi. If they didn't inquire about him, they wouldn't have known. After doing so, they were shocked to find out that Leng Shiqi had such a stormy experience and had such a terrifying battle record. Now, Leng Shiqi had returned to the West Baron Prefecture with so many Dark Lightning Guards. What was he planning to do? For a time, the various sects and forces began to panic. Only the 4 top sects in the Western Wilderness had guessed the purpose of Leng Shiqi's visit, which was to investigate the people who had come to celebrate the Emperor's birthday. These 4 sects also received invitations, but they could only send 2 people at most. When they knew that Leng Shiqi was coming, they immediately recalled all their disciples. All of them either sealed their mountains or went into seclusion, afraid that they would accidentally cause trouble. Not only would they lose the opportunity to meet the sage, but they would also cause endless trouble. Seeing that even the first-rate sects were acting like this, the other sects were even more jittery and cautious. The entire West Desolate County had actually fallen into an extremely rare tranquility. And this was what Leng Shiqi wanted to see. A few days later, Hangzhou City in the West Desolate Province became the most eye-catching place in the entire West Desolate Province. That was because all the Dark Lightning Guards and families in the North region were gathered there. When the Dark Lightning Guards learned that they finally had a backbone, they were naturally very happy. But those families were somewhat trembling with fear. Although they had a cooperative relationship with Leng Shiqi, they had made a fortune together and had made a lot of money over the years. They should have been happy. But Leng Shiqi was really notorious in the North region. In particular, he had easily killed Ji Dong and destroyed the Wind and Thunder Tower, which made Leng Shiqi's notoriety reach an unprecedented height. Back in the Mist City, he had set up a banquet to eliminate families one by one. Now that he set up another banquet, all the families thought it was a Hongmen banquet. But they had to come and no one dared to refuse. On this day, all the family heads walked into Jinhua Restaurant, the most luxurious restaurant in Hangzhou City. These people were all big shots, but they didn't even dare to breathe heavily in the restaurant. They all sat there in a daze. At noon, Leng Shiqi walked in surrounded by 5 masters of the Gang Spirit realm, including Mr. Huang and Gao Ting. The 6 of them didn't release any spiritual power, but the momentum of the Gang Spirit realm alone made everyone feel suffocated, as if even the air was frozen. Leng Shiqi looked around and found that there were 70 or 80 family heads present. It seemed that the business in the north region was getting bigger and bigger, which also meant that his family was getting richer and richer. I'm very happy that you can come to the banquet, Leng Shiqi said with a smile. In the past I also set up a banquet and invited some families. Unfortunately, some of them are no longer here. Speaking of this, all the family heads felt a shadow in their hearts. Leng Shiqi saw that everyone was being honest and continued, "Actually, I've invited everyone here to discuss something." Speaking of this, he clapped his hands, and immediately hundreds of dark lightning guards came in and stood behind each family head. Everyone felt a chill on their backs and some of them even trembled and almost couldn't sit still. Since things were already like this, what was the point of having a discussion? Just do what you want. Don't worry. I know that you often go to the 6 countries of the Western region to do business and inevitably encounter some dangers on the way. For your safety, I've decided to equip each family with several dark lightning guards to protect you. In this way the business route will be smooth and we will naturally earn more. What do you think? When the various family heads heard these words, their thoughts were stirred up. They believed that Leng Shiqi wanted to supervise each and every one of their families. If so, they would be under the surveillance of the dark lightning guards all the time and completely lose all their freedom. But no one dared to refuse. Zhong Qing, the head of the Zhong family in the Mist City, was the first to stand up and say, "Mr. Liu is right. For my lord to be so considerate of us, this lowly one is moved to tears. This lowly one thanks my lord again." With someone taking the lead, the others could only follow suit and say in unison, "We'll follow Mr. Liu's instructions." Leng Shiqi nodded with satisfaction. In fact, he didn't want to monitor these families because they were already under the surveillance of the Dark Lightning Guards. He actually wanted to use this method to have the Dark Lightning Guards hide in the caravan and sneak into the 6 countries of the Western region to gather information. This matter was done smoothly, so he turned and left. The family heads all breathed a sigh of relief and unknowingly broke out in a cold sweat. At the same time, in the Dark Lightning Manor in the Western Desolate Province, several people gathered in Yu Ruifeng's study. Now that Yu Ruifeng was at the late stage of unity of heaven and man realm, he didn't look as sharp as before and felt much more peaceful. Beside him were the other 3 great supervisors and his right-hand man, Li Hong. They also knew about Leng Shiqi's actions after he came to the Western Desolate Province. Some people were envious of Leng Shiqi because they had seen him enter the Dark Thunder Guards through the back door with their own eyes when he was only at the spiritual pulse realm. Now, Leng Shiqi was an existence that they had to look up to no matter if it was his cultivation or his status. Some people were envious, but of course there were also people who felt uncomfortable. That person was Duan Chun. He used to be Leng Shiqi's superior and the two of them even had a conflict. Now that Leng Shiqi had achieved great success, would he come to take revenge on him? He sat on the chair and was a little restless, looking like he wanted to say something but hesitated. "Mr. Liu, I have something to say." Duan Chun held back for a long time and finally spoke. Yu Ruifeng said indifferently, "Say it." Duan Chun stood up and said, "Mr. Yu, we've worked together for many years and you know me well. I've always been straightforward. Even if Lu Xingji is an imperial eunuch and has the deep trust of Supervisor Gao, you are the patrol envoy of the Western Desolate Province. Furthermore, we are the ones in charge of investigating the identity of all the guests. But when Lu Xingji came to the Western Desolate Province, he didn't come to see you first. Instead, he went to Hanzhou City and acted like a tyrant. Now, his fame is great and all the sects in the Western Desolate Province fear him. I'm afraid that people only know him as Lu Xingji and not you, Mr. Yu." Chapter 620. Duan Chun said a lot, but after he finished, the study was silent. No one spoke again. Duan Chun felt a little embarrassed. He looked at Yu Ruifeng and found that Yu Ruifeng's eyes were half closed as if he was about to fall asleep. Duan Chun didn't understand. He felt that what he said was true. Why did Yu Ruifeng have such a reaction? This was not the same Yu Ruifeng he knew before. Yu Ruifeng raised his eyelids. "Finished?" Duan Chun said subconsciously, "Yes, I'm finished." "If you're finished, you can leave. I've been very busy recently." Yu Ruifeng ordered the guests to leave, and the 3 people in the room bowed and left. Coming to the courtyard, Duan Chun pulled Li Hong and said, "Lord Li, what I said just now is true. Why didn't Lord Yu react at all?" Li Hong sneered, "Lord Duan, how long has it been since Lu Xingji joined the Dark Thunder Guard? You and I have both seen it, especially since he was once your subordinate. Now that he has soared to the sky, I can understand that Lord Duan is a little uncomfortable, but you forgot one thing." "What is it?" Li Hong leaned closer and said, "Lu Xingji came with an extremely important mission, and it was Lord Yu who took the initiative to apply to headquarters to transfer people to help us. He even handed over the power to Lu Xingji. What does this mean? Lu Xingji can take your head with a word, but you still dare to slander him. I really don't know if you're bold or too straightforward. Duan Chun suddenly felt like he had fallen into an ice cellar. He was indeed unhappy when he saw his subordinate jump to become his immediate superior, which was why he said those words. Now it seemed that he was indeed a little inconsiderate. Just as they were walking outside, a dark thunder guard ran to Yu Ruifeng's study and shouted, "Lord Yu, there are two people outside the residence named Gao Yi and Lian Yi asking for an audience." Yu Ruifeng's eyes suddenly widened. He waved his hand and blew open the door. "Who did you say came outside the residence?" The man repeated, "It's Gao Yi and Lian Yi." Hearing these two names, Duan Chun and Li Hong were puzzled because they had never heard of these two people. But looking at Yu Ruifeng's expression, it was obvious that the two people's identities were not simple. It was no wonder that they didn't know that Gao Yi was eunuch Gao's adopted son and could be said to be the most outstanding adopted son. However, eunuch Gao had quite a number of adopted sons. Furthermore, Gao Yi spent most of his time deep in the palace. Only the ministers who often went in and out of the palace would recognize him. It was impossible for the border inspectors like Duan Chun to recognize him. They had never even heard of him. As for Lian Yi, the people who knew of her identity were basically those in the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters and the inner city of the imperial capital, so it was even more impossible for them to know. Yu Ruifeng briefly explained the identities of these two people, causing Duan Chun and the others to turn pale with fright. Eunuch Gao's adopted son, Empyrean Black Flame's adopted daughter. What kind of noble status was this? It was an existence that they would never be able to reach in their entire lives. Yu Ruifeng hurriedly led several people out to welcome them. When they arrived at Dark Thunder Manor's entrance, Lian Yi was looking left and right. Gao Yi smiled and said, "Lord Yu, it's an honor to meet you at last." "Please come in, Eunuch Gao." Yu Ruifeng smiled as well. Gao Yi shook his head and said, "I don't dare to accept the title of Eunuch Gao. Lord, you can just call me Gao Yi." Yu Ruifeng thought that it made sense. So as to avoid offending Steward Gao's name, he welcomed Gao Yi and Lian Yi into the discussion hall and asked, "Eunuch Gao Yi and Miss Lian Yi have come all the way to the Western Desolate Commandery. I wonder what honorable business you have?" Gao Yi looked at Lian Yi and found that she had no intention of speaking. Only then did Gao Yi open his mouth and say, "We are actually here to assist Lord Lu Xingji." When these words came out, everyone in the hall was shocked. With the identities of these two people, they were actually only Lu Xingji's assistants? That Lu Xingji already had such a high status. The others were only shocked, but Duan Chun also had a trace of fear in his heart. He was already rejoicing that Yu Ruifeng did not pay attention to his words. Gao Yi looked at everyone's expression and secretly smiled. However, he did not expose them. Instead, he changed the topic and said, "Lord Lu has already arrived in Hanzhou City. I'm sure everyone already knows. He said that he will be here soon to discuss with all of you how to arrange and monitor the various countries' diplomatic missions." Yu Ruifeng said, "Regarding this matter, we are already working on it. We have already obtained the names of the various countries' diplomatic missions and are preparing to investigate them one by one. However, my Dark Lightning Guards also have to monitor the West Desolate Province at the same time, so we are a little short on manpower. I wonder when Lord Lu will be here?" Suddenly, a voice came from outside, "I'm already here." Everyone looked over at the same time. Unknowingly, a figure was already standing outside the discussion hall. It was Leng Shiqi. Everyone looked at Leng Shiqi in shock. He was clearly in Hanzhou City yesterday, so how did he come to the West Desolate City now? Could it be that he could grow a pair of wings and fly over? In fact, Leng Shiqi really did fly over. Hanzhou City was less than 1,000 miles away from the West Desolate City. He used the Fate skill to teleport over and followed Lian Yi and the others to the West Desolate City. The moment Leng Shiqi arrived, Yu Ruifeng's face was instantly filled with joy. "Lord Lu, you're finally here." "Lord Yu, this junior doesn't deserve the title of Lord," Leng Shiqi immediately said humbly. "You are now the eunuch envoy, so you are definitely worthy of the title. Let's not talk about this anymore, come in and take a seat." Yu Ruifeng was very enthusiastic. After all, Leng Shiqi had saved his life before. Leng Shiqi sat beside Yu Ruifeng and said, "Lord Yu, I heard that you have obtained the names of the various countries' diplomatic missions?" "That's right, it's here. Take a look." Yu Ruifeng took out a report. Leng Shiqi opened it and looked at the Zhu Lugua. Shortly after, his eyes were filled with shock because the Zhu Lugua's King Gus was actually going to personally celebrate Lei Qingjuan's birthday. But thinking about it, King Gus had only ascended the throne for a short period of time. Moreover, he had some conflicts with the Thunderfire dynasty. Leng Shiqi guessed that King Gus wanted to use this birthday celebration to hug the thighs of the Thunderfire dynasty and stabilize his position on the throne. Leng Shiqi inwardly said, since Gus is going to personally come to the Thunderfire dynasty, then the Zhu Lugua will be like a dragon without a head. This might be an opportunity for me. Back then, when he was in the Zhu Lugua, Leng Shiqi had also left behind a few backup plans for the future. Now that Leng Shiqi's strength and influence were incomparable to the past, it was time for him to start making arrangements for that matter. He immediately said, although the 6 countries of the West regions are small countries, we cannot let down our guard. I have already used some of my family's channels to arrange for people to infiltrate the various countries, but even so, I am still somewhat worried. Therefore, I have decided to personally make a trip. Chapter 621. Yu Ruifeng frowned. You want to go to the 6 Western countries? Yes. Leng Shiqi nodded. Instead of waiting for those envoys to enter the country, it's better to take the initiative. To be honest, I have a secret technique that allows me to travel hundreds of miles in a day. The 6 Western countries aren't large, and they plan to enter the country in 2 or 3 months. With this time, I can go to all the 6 Western countries. At that time, I'll need Lord Yu to preside over the situation in the Western Desolate Province. Yu Ruifeng also hesitated. Leng Shiqi was supposed to be in charge of this mission, but Leng Shiqi had to investigate the background of the members of the diplomatic mission by himself. Not only would he be extremely tired from running back and forth between the 6 countries of the Western region, but he would also be in great danger. After all, not everyone in the 6 Western countries had a good relationship with the Thunderstorm dynasty. If Leng Shiqi's identity was exposed, he might really be left there. If Leng Shiqi really had an accident, how would Yu Ruifeng explain it to eunuch Gao? Leng Shiqi smiled. Lord Yu, don't worry. I cherish my life very much. I'm just going to scout for information. I won't do anything too dangerous. When he saw Leng Shiqi being so certain, Yu Ruifeng could only agree. Since it's like this, I'll have to trouble Lord Lu. But I must hold a grand banquet tonight to welcome Lord Lu, eunuch Gao Yi, and Miss Lian Yi. The next day, Leng Shiqi left the Western Desolate Province alone and headed for the Zhu Lu country. With his speed, it only took him 3 or 4 days to reach the Zhu Lu country. At this moment, he was standing at the foot of a mountain, holding a piece of information in his hand and reading it with great interest. Before coming to the Zhu Lu country, he had obtained some information from the Dark Thunder Guards and the Blood Garment Pavilion. He was currently reading about a new power in the Zhu Lu country in recent years, the Buddhist sect. The Buddhist sect was a very special power because it didn't focus on cultivating the cultivation of its disciples. Instead, it preached Buddhist scriptures. There was a reason why it was still called a power. Zhu Lu country wasn't rich to begin with. Adding on the fact that many people had died during the transfer of the throne 2 years ago, the people were in a state of panic. This made the situation even more difficult. Coincidentally, the Buddhist sect appeared at this time. The disciples of the Buddhist sect were all as benevolent and charitable as Leng Shiqi remembered them to be. Very quickly they gained quite a bit of fame in the Zhu Lu country. Moreover, Buddhist sects didn't have any requirements for talent when accepting disciples. As long as one had good intentions, they could join. Gradually, they attracted more and more people. Of course, most of them were poor people. However, there were also many spirit cultivators who would take the initiative to join, ranging from the spirit astral realm to the spirit gathering realm, so it could be considered a force. Along the way, Leng Shiqi occasionally saw a few Buddhists. Most of them were not different from the impression he had in his previous life. He even felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. And the founder of this Buddhist sect was Tuding. Actually, Leng Shiqi was also quite surprised. When he gave the Buddhist scriptures to Tuding, it was just a casual act. He never thought that Tuding would be able to reappear in this world. The reason why he came here was because of the 3 favors that Tuding owed him. If Leng Shiqi wanted to complete his plan in Zhu Lu country, Tuding's strength was indispensable. Especially now that Buddhism had appeared, Tuding wasn't just a powerful force, he also had a lot of people's hearts. This was extremely important to his future plans. Senior Tuding has truly given me a pleasant surprise. Leng Shiqi muttered, then walked up the mountain peak. On the mountain path, there were a few monks and pilgrims who came to offer incense. The people here were not small. However, most of these people were thin and sallow. It was obvious that their days weren't good. When he reached the peak, he saw an irregular temple. As soon as he appeared, a loud Buddhist chant came from the temple. Amitba, a kind person has come from afar. This old monk has failed to welcome you. In an instant, the entire temple was covered in a layer of faint Buddhist light. All of the Buddhist disciples and pilgrims immediately knelt on the ground and chanted. Tuding wore a xianxia and walked out with a face full of glory. "Little friend Lu, long time no see." Leng Shiqi looked at the current Tuding and felt a trace of absent-mindedness. It was as if he saw a Buddhist light behind Tuding's head that was like a sun. What made him feel even more strange was that Tuding's aura was very strange. Leng Shiqi had interacted with many Heaven Man Realm and Heaven Origin Realm experts. However, Tuding's aura seemed to be above Heaven Man Realm, but it wasn't Heaven Origin Realm. Then what was Tuding's cultivation level? However, Leng Shiqi wouldn't ask about someone's cultivation level. He cupped his hands and said, "Senior Tuding, it has indeed been a long time. Amit Ba, this old monk is no longer a person of the secular world. Senior or not, it doesn't matter. Senior's transcendence is admirable. Seeing that you created the Buddhist sect to help the world, why don't I call you Master Buddha Tuding?" Leng Shiqi said with a smile. "This old monk doesn't dare." Leng Shiqi shook his head and said, "Since you have transcended the world, why do you care about a title?" Tuding was stunned for a moment, then he laughed. "Ha, this old monk has been thinking too much. Little friend, you are right. Little friend, please come in." After the two of them sat down, Tuding said with emotion, "The Buddhist scriptures that little friend left behind can be said to be the world's most precious treasure. It contains the highest Buddhist principles. The more this old monk studies it, the more I feel like a frog at the bottom of a well. Every Buddhist scripture is like a boundless world. I'm afraid this old monk won't be able to study it thoroughly even if he studies it for his entire life." Actually, Leng Shiqi had also read those Buddhist scriptures, but they were simply heavenly scrolls. He couldn't understand anything. He also didn't know how Tuding could see such profound things. Of course, he still followed his memories from his previous life and started to chat with Tuding. Occasionally, the golden sentences that came out would make Tuding sigh. Until nighttime, when Leng Shiqi's stomach was completely drained of ink, he finally explained his purpose for coming. "Master Tuding, this junior actually came this time to ask for a favor." Tuding revealed an as expected smile and said, "Little friend came from the western desolate province. Naturally you have an important matter. Little friend, please speak." Leng Shiqi pondered for a moment, then first asked, "May I ask what Master Tuding's current cultivation level is?" Speaking of this, Tuding also had a somewhat doubtful expression. According to the system of spirit cultivation, this old monk has been studying Buddhism for the past 2 years and has comprehended many cultivation methods and spirit techniques. I'm even able to communicate with the power of heaven and earth. Normally speaking, this is already considered the sky origin stage. However, this old monk's spirit energy hasn't transformed into the power of heaven and earth, so I can only be considered half a step into the sky origin stage. This is also something this old monk has been very doubtful about. Chapter 622. After hearing Tuding's words, Leng Shiqi didn't know what to say. What did he mean by comprehending a lot of martial arts and spiritual techniques? What did he mean by communicating with the power of heaven and earth? He made it sound as if it was as simple as eating and drinking. Fortunately, Leng Shiqi could confirm that Tuding's current strength was definitely above the unity of heaven realm. With such a powerful combat force to use, his plan had a higher chance of succeeding. However, what made Leng Shiqi even more curious was what kind of spiritual technique Tuding had comprehended. One had to know that Tuding had comprehended it from those Buddhist scriptures, so it was definitely related to Buddhism. To be honest, Leng Shiqi was a little tempted. He asked curiously, "Master Tuding, if this junior is so bold, I wonder what kind of spiritual technique you have comprehended from those Buddhist scriptures?" Tuding didn't say anything. He clasped his hands together and his body shone with a blazing Buddhist aura. Boundless Vajra power surged over. At the same time, Tuding's body was dyed with a layer of dazzling gold, as if he was a Vajra Buddha. Vajra indestructible divine art. Leng Shiqi couldn't help but exclaim, "Oh!" Tuding was slightly surprised. This old monk didn't name this technique after comprehending it. Little friend's Vajra indestructible divine art is indeed very appropriate. Leng Shiqi couldn't help but admire Tuding. He was actually able to create a powerful technique like Vajra indestructible divine art from those seemingly ordinary scriptures. This was a divine art that was known as the strongest in defense. It allowed one to transform into a Vajra body that was impervious to weapons, water, and fire. It was invincible in close combat. However, Tuding used his palm as a saber and released a saber beam. Strangely, this saber beam didn't have any killing intent. It even gave off a very warm feeling. It was as if this saber technique wasn't created to kill people. A name suddenly appeared in Leng Shiqi's mind: Merciful Saber Technique. Tu Deng successively used the Buddhist divine arts from his previous life: the Great Steel Breaking Hand, the Vajra Finger, the 12 Dragon Capturing Hands. Leng Shiqi couldn't take it all in. He was even more shocked. In the end, Tu Deng struck out with his palm. Leng Shiqi actually heard boundless Sanskrit chants ringing in his ears. When he looked up, he didn't know when the 8 divine Buddhas had appeared in the world. A huge palm illuminated by Buddha's aura slowly descended, as if it was going to subdue demons and devils, fully displaying the might of the divine Buddhas. Leng Shiqi opened his mouth and murmured, This can't be the Buddha's palm, right? Tu Deng's palm didn't land. He stopped halfway, and the golden light that filled the sky suddenly disappeared. His control over his strength had already reached a perfect state. This palm technique doesn't only have one move but a set. It can be said to be broad and profound. It's a pity that this old monk's perception is limited. So far, I've only comprehended 6 moves. Tu Deng said with a vexed voice. Leng Shiqi really wanted to find a piece of tofu and kill himself. He originally thought that his perception was already very high. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to fuse so many divine arts and spiritual skills. But compared to Tu Deng, it was simply a small fry. This person could casually create all kinds of mystical divine arts. Even the Gu arts that were famous in the 6 kingdoms of the western regions were created by him. Now, he had actually created so many powerful spiritual techniques from those scriptures. The weakest spiritual skill that Tu Deng used just now was at the 6th level. Even the Vajra body divine art and the Buddha's palm had already reached the 7th level or even higher. Although these divine arts and spiritual skills were slightly different from what Leng Shiqi remembered from his previous life, they were more than 80% similar. Leng Shiqi really felt that it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call Tu Deng a living Buddha. Tu Deng withdrew his Buddhist power and said, Since little friend asked about this old monk's cultivation and spiritual skills, you must have a use for this old monk. Little friend, please feel free to ask. Leng Shiqi pondered for a moment and took out an emerald green pearl. This was one of the 3 pearls that Tu Deng gave him. As long as he took out this pearl, Tu Deng would do 3 things for Leng Shiqi. This junior wants to ask Great Master Tu Deng to pass these divine arts and spiritual skills to this junior. Leng Shiqi stated his request. What surprised him was that Tu Deng shook his head. You're too polite, little friend. These techniques were all comprehended from your scriptures. They belong to you in the first place, so it's only right for me to pass them to you. Leng Shiqi smiled but did not say anything. He directly crushed the emerald green pearl and said, These things are too precious. This junior cannot take them for free. Fine, little friend Lu is indeed a sentimental person. This old monk admires you. Tu Deng took out a jade slip as he spoke. This contains all the divine arts and spiritual skills that this old monk has comprehended in the past few years. Little friend Lu, keep it well. Phew. Leng Shiqi took the jade slip. His breathing could not help but become heavy. The things inside were enough to make many spirit cultivators fight to the death. Especially the Vajra unbreakable divine art and Buddha's palm. They could directly increase Leng Shiqi's strength. Furthermore, the Buddhist divine arts could suppress demons and devils. They were the nemesis of all demons and ghosts. Adding on the pure gold earth dragon flames on his body, if he met a devil cultivator in the future, it would be a powerful weapon. Following that, Leng Shiqi took out a second pearl and said, This junior has a presumptuous request. I would like to invite Grandmaster to join my faction. Tu Deng frowned when he heard that. It's not that this old monk does not want to agree. It's just that this old monk has no other thoughts. I only want to do my best to help others. I don't want to be involved with any other factions. Leng Shiqi smiled and said, Grandmaster, please let this junior finish. Although my faction is called a faction, it is actually just a loose organization. To tell you the truth, there are only 2 people in the faction. This junior can guarantee that it will not cause any trouble for Grandmaster. Tu Deng hesitated for a moment, then nodded and said, That's fine. This old monk agrees. Hearing that, Leng Shiqi's face lit up. To be able to rope in a great expert like Tu Deng, who was also a great expert with superb comprehension, this was too profitable for him. At the same time, a system notification appeared in front of his eyes. Do you want to invite Tu Deng to join Underworld? Yes. Soon after, a mark entered Tu Deng's body. Leng Shiqi observed with rapt attention, but Tu Deng did not notice it at all. At this moment, Leng Shiqi suddenly had a thought. He wanted to bring Tu Deng into Underworld to take a look. Since Tu Deng was already a member of Underworld, he would have to go in sooner or later. He said, Grandmaster Tu Deng, since you are already a member of a faction, this junior can make some things clear. My faction is called Underworld. Not long ago, this junior obtained a secret realm as the foundation of my faction. I wonder if Grandmaster is willing to go in and take a look? Secret realm? Tu Deng was very surprised. Young friend, you actually obtained a secret realm. You are truly blessed. Grandmaster, don't resist. After saying that, Lung Shiqi placed his hand on Tu Deng's shoulder. With a thought, he brought Tu Deng into Underworld. Chapter 623. The moment Tu Deng entered the Underworld and saw the scene, his expression changed. This place is the land of extreme negative energy, the land of extreme evil, the land of great evil. However, there seems to be a trace of faintly discernible vitality in the deepest part of the cave. It's really strange. This junior was also extremely shocked when he obtained this mystic realm. Grandmaster, please follow me. Lung Shiqi said as he led Tu Deng to the gates of hell. Tu Deng looked at the words gates of hell and frowned deeply, but he didn't say anything. However, when they walked through the Yellow Springs Road and stepped onto the Bridge of Helplessness, Tu Deng suddenly exclaimed when he saw more than 1,000 souls, "Are these human souls?" Before Lung Shiqi could explain, a ghostly figure flashed and 2 pitch-black chains lashed out like whips. Lung Shiqi immediately shouted, "Li Gui, back down." The ghostly figure suddenly paused and bowed deeply to Lung Shiqi before retreating. Tu Deng looked at all of this in a daze, especially that Li Gui. He actually couldn't tell what Li Gui was. It was neither human nor ghost. It seemed to be alive but also lifeless. Lung Shiqi explained half-truthfully, "Grandmaster, this junior discovered that as long as someone dies near me, their soul will be sucked into this place. However, I don't know why. The person just now was an anomaly among these souls. I have already subdued him." This is the first time this old monk has seen something so strange in this mystic realm. However, when I saw these souls staying here in a daze, this old monk felt uneasy. According to what this junior knows, there are many soul-purifying techniques in Buddhist scriptures. I believe Grandmaster will figure it out sooner or later. When that happens, the souls in the underworld will be reborn, said Lung Shiqi. Tu Deng said in realization, that's right. This old monk has some impression of it, but this old monk has never thought in this direction. It turns out that not only do living people need to be purified, but the souls of dead people also need to be purified. Amit Ba, this is this old monk's sin. He put his palms together and chanted the name of Buddha. Suddenly, a golden light soared into the sky from the mysterious Fengdu necropolis. It was very eye-catching in the dark underworld. Lung Shiqi and Tu Deng looked over at the same time. They both felt a familiar aura from it. It was also an aura that should not exist here. What is power? Just as the two of them were confused, the golden light arrived in the blink of an eye, bathing Tu Deng in it. At the same time, the sky above the underworld trembled, and a mysterious voice seemed to come from the underworld. Conferred Xidigarba. Xidigarba? Lung Shiqi was shocked. Or rather, he was pleasantly surprised. He didn't have any other intentions when he brought Tu into the underworld, but he didn't expect that he would be able to trigger the mysterious Fengdu necropolis and obtain the title of Xidigarba. Calm and unmoving like the earth, quiet and deep like a hide-and-seek. Xidigarba Bodhisattva was a figure with a transcendent status in the underworld. He had made a vow that he would not become a Buddha until hell was empty. He had vividly displayed the great compassion and perseverance of Buddhism. From Lung Shiqi's point of view, Tu Deng did indeed have such an attitude. Buzz. A statue of Xidigarba Bodhisattva stood majestically, almost filling the entire space of the underworld. Then it suddenly shrank and was sucked into Tu Deng's body. Tu Deng's body was emitting a faint Buddhist light. There was no sorrow or joy in his eyes. He had no thoughts of life. After a long while, he gradually returned to normal. He was also a little dazed, as if he had a slight headache. What happened just now? Why is there so much information in my mind? Lung Shiqi's mouth twitched slightly. When he entered the underworld for the first time, he had clearly become the Fengdu necropolis emperor of the Bain, but why didn't he have such an earth-shattering phenomenon? He even began to wonder if he was the master of the underworld. He could only say, this junior is also not very clear. Perhaps there is some mysterious inheritance in this arcane realm. It seems that Master Tu Deng is the one with great fortune. This junior congratulates you. To be able to encounter such a great fortuitous encounter at my age, but this is all thanks to little friend Lu. Tu Deng bowed slightly to Lung Shiqi. Lung Shiqi hurriedly supported Tu Deng and said, Master Tu Deng is too serious. I see that Master's condition is not very good. Let's go back first. All right. The two of them left the underworld. Lung Shiqi continued, Master, This junior actually planned to ask for master's help this time, but not now. It's fine. When little friend Lu needs help, you can come here at any time. If that's the case, this junior will thank you in advance. Master, please rest. This junior will take his leave. Leng Shiqi's main purpose of coming here was to confirm if Tu Deng was here and what his cultivation realm was like. He obtained some Buddhist cultivation techniques and invited Tu Deng into the underworld on the spur of the moment. However, they had given him many unexpected surprises. Since the matter was settled, it was time for him to leave. Even though he was very curious about what Tu Deng obtained, he still had many important things to do. He really could not wait. After bidding farewell to Tu Deng, Leng Shiqi quickly arrived at a deep valley filled with poisonous gas. There was a new faction that had emerged in the past 2 years, Myriad Gu Cave. This was also a faction that focused on cultivating Gu techniques. It was not very strong, but it was still stronger than ordinary third-rate sections. In Zhu Road, although the Gu God sect had been destroyed long ago, the Gu God sect had taken root in Zhu Road for decades. It was once regarded as the national religion, and Gu techniques had long been spread everywhere. Therefore, even if the Gu God sect was gone, Gu techniques were still relatively popular. The appearance of Myriad Gu Cave did not attract much attention. The sect master of Myriad Gu Cave was called Madame Myriad Gu. She was an extremely vicious woman. She was somewhat famous in the surrounding 50 kilometers. Leng Shiqi used his supercilious eyes to see through the poisonous gas. He discovered that there were several hundred people in Myriad Gu Cave. Among them, more than 80% were low-level disciples below the sky realm. There were only a dozen spirit pulse realm cultivators. As for the spirit aperture realm, there were only 2. One of them was at the spirit aperture realm initial stage, while the other was at the spirit aperture realm late stage. This person cultivated the Myriad Gu spirit devouring technique. Then this person's identity was clear. She was the former Princess Ka Luo. Leng Shiqi muttered to himself, I didn't think that the naive Princess Ka Luo would actually create a decent sect. It seems that the power of revenge is indeed very strong. In a sealed secret room in Myriad Gu Cave, Princess Ka Luo, who was disguised as a woman, was cultivating Gu techniques. The entire secret room was filled with all kinds of Gu worms. But all of a sudden, all of the Gu worms scattered as if they had encountered heaven and earth. Princess Ka Luo suddenly opened her eyes. She was startled at first but immediately calmed down. She said in a low voice, Which expert has come to visit? Please show yourself. A figure strangely appeared beside her and said faintly, Long time no see. Princess Ka Luo, do you still remember me? Chapter 624. Hearing this familiar voice, Princess Carol whispered in disbelief, It's you? Leng Shiqi did not disguise himself as Wuxialover this time. Instead, he came in with his original appearance, so Princess Carol did not dare to confirm it immediately. Yes, it's me. This is my original appearance. Leng Shiqi said indifferently. For the current Leng Shiqi, there was no need to hide his identity in front of some people. On the contrary, it would be easier to get things done by directly revealing his identity. Princess Carol also noticed that Leng Shiqi was wearing the Dark Thunder Guard's uniform. She asked in surprise, You're from the Dark Thunder Guard? Leng Shiqi nodded and said, Dark Thunder Guard Headquarters Eunuch Leng Shiqi, as well as the West and North Desolation Prefecture's Great Supervisor, greets Princess Carol. Princess Carol had stayed in the Thunderblaze dynasty for a period of time. She knew the identity of the Great Supervisor. He was also a supervisor. Although she had never heard of any eunuch as long as he was related to the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters, he was definitely not an ordinary person. She had also guessed Leng Shiqi's true identity. She thought that he would be from the Starfall dynasty, but she never dreamed that the person secretly helping her would be a member of the Thunderblaze dynasty's Dark Thunder Guard. So you're Lu Xingji. Now that she thought about it, everything this person said back then was simply a lie. Leng Shiqi saw that Princess Carol was unhappy and immediately said with a smile, Princess Carol, please don't blame me. Back then, my cultivation was low and my words carried little weight. I had to be careful. Now that I've come to see you with my true identity, it's my greatest sincerity. Enough. If you have something to say, just say it. Princess Carol had matured a lot in the past 2 years. However, she knew that she could not outsmart Leng Shiqi, so she simply spoke frankly. Leng Shiqi asked back, I want to ask your highness first. Do you still want to take back the throne of Zhu Lu and avenge the late king and queen? Princess Carol immediately gritted her teeth and said, Of course I do. I even dream of it. Do you know how I spent the past 2 years? Your highness, this is only a temporary forbearance. I came this time to tell you that the strength we have accumulated is not weak. Leng Shiqi said, but he immediately changed the topic. But it's still not enough to take down Gus. In fact, when Leng Shiqi destroyed the Gu God sect and accidentally found Princess Carol, he had a crazy idea in his heart, and that was to enter the Zhu Lu kingdom. This idea seemed absurd, but it had always been Leng Shiqi's plan. First of all, he persuaded Princess Carol to come. He had a good reason to do so. That way, the Sky Origin Stage cultivators in the Zhu Lu country's Hall of Worship wouldn't be alerted. Although the current Myriad Gu cave strength was mediocre, Leng Shiqi had Princess Carol nurture her own faction not because he expected her to provide much fighting power. Instead, he wanted Leng Shiqi's own people to hide in 10,000 Gu cave. Even if the experts in the Hall of Consecration would not interfere, Prince Gus had a large number of troops and it was unrealistic for him to attack the palace directly. Therefore there must be a spy. That spy was Elder Chu Li. According to Leng Shiqi's information, Chu Li had been under house arrest after Gus ascended to the throne. In the past 2 years he had been trying to weaken Chu Li's influence. However, Chu Li had been an elder for decades. He had too many disciples. Even if Prince Gus kept weakening him, he still had a lot of power. More importantly, Sang Hetong had planted a mind-controlling Gu in Chu Li. Now, the control of the mind-controlling Gu had fallen into Leng Shiqi's hands. This meant that Leng Shiqi could completely control Chu Li. As long as he controlled Chu Li and cooperated with him at the right time, it was very likely that a large number of experts would be quietly sent into Yunwu City, and they could start a war at any time. Moreover, Chu Li was highly respected. As long as he stood out to support Princess Carol, there would be no more objections. Then the matter would be settled. However, Leng Shiqi said to Princess Carol that he still needed a little more. The only thing he lacked was strength. He didn't worry about the top fighting power. With Tooting's strength he could definitely kill Gus. What he lacked most now was the backbone of Gang Spirit Realm. As an inspector, he had several Gang Spirit Realm experts in his hands. However, he couldn't take those inspectors to plot against Zhu Lu State, so he couldn't use the Dark Thunder Guards. In Leng Shiqi's original plan he was going to use the people of the Blood-Robed Pavilion, but now he didn't think so. The Blood-Robed Pavilion wanted to break the shackles of thousands of years and didn't want to be controlled by others, so he came up with the Blood Seed plan. Leng Shiqi was also working hard to carry out the Blood Seed plan, but in the process, with the growth of his strength and influence, he gradually had his own ideas. If the Blood Seed plan failed or was exposed in advance in the future, he had to pave a way for himself. Therefore, he couldn't use the people of the Blood-Robed Pavilion. In this way he could only use the Mansion of the Underworld. There were only 3 members of the Mansion of the Underworld now, but both he and the Delta Orgi were far more powerful than their cultivation realms. Besides, he was not in a hurry to take over Zhu Lu State. After a period of growth, he believed that the strength of him and the Delta Orgi would grow rapidly. And he would also continue to recruit some members of the Mansion of the Underworld. Perhaps one day in the future, the Mansion of the Underworld would also become a top force that would scare people. This was Leng Shiqi's plan. However, when Princess Carol heard Leng Shiqi say that it was almost done, her face suddenly turned cold and she said, "Then what you said is the same as not saying anything?" Leng Shiqi did not directly answer Princess Carol. Instead he took out a ring and a jade slip. Princess Carol's gaze fell on the ring with a skull. Her eyes suddenly widened and she said, This is the Divine Gu ring? It is a level 7 treasure, the Divine Gu ring. Leng Shiqi said bluntly, "From now on it is yours." "What did you say?" Princess Carol's face was full of disbelief. This was a level 7 treasure, and it was the most precious treasure of the Gu God sect. It could be said that it was a treasure that all cultivators of the Gu God sect dreamed of. How could such a treasure be given away so casually? In fact, Leng Shiqi gave the Divine Gu ring to Princess Carol because of this reason. Ever since he obtained the Divine Gu ring, he had only used it a few times. That was because his Gu arts were not very good. As for the Divine Gu ring's ability to amplify spells, it had little effect on Leng Shiqi, who had opened all his spirit veins and spirit cavities. This treasure was of little value to him. It was better to give it to Princess Carol, who was proficient in Gu techniques, to make the best use of it. Leng Shiqi looked at the surprised Princess Carol and said indifferently, "Your Highness, why don't you take a look at the jade slip?" Chapter 625. Princess Carol still hadn't recovered from the shock of the Divine Gu ring. After hearing this, she subconsciously picked up the jade slip and probed it with her spiritual power. Inside it was the complete 10,000 Gu spirit devouring technique. She suddenly felt a wave of dizziness in her mind, and she even began to wonder if she was dreaming. Lung Shichi had given Princess Carol a part of Sang Hetong's Gu refining experience, and she had used it as the foundation to cultivate a large number of rare Gu worms, which attracted many spirit cultivators to join the 10,000 Gu cave. Unfortunately, Princess Carol was somewhat lacking in cultivation methods because she only had the first half of the 10,000 Gu spirit devouring technique, which was only enough for her to cultivate to the peak of the spirit aperture realm. Now that she was at the late stage of the spirit aperture realm, she had been worrying about cultivation methods recently. Lung Shichi's complete version of the 10,000 Gu spirit devouring technique could be said to be timely rain. Moreover, the 10,000 Gu spirit devouring technique was an 8th rank cultivation method, especially for those who cultivated Gu. Even if someone exchanged it with a 9th rank cultivation method, she wouldn't be willing. Princess Carol's eyes were almost overflowing with light. It was obvious that she wanted it very much. Lung Shichi also secretly smiled. Whether it was the divine Gu ring or the 10,000 Gu spirit devouring technique, they were too attractive to those who cultivated Gu. He said, "Both of these things can be given to your highness, which will help your cultivation greatly and increase your chances of success in the future." However, Princess Carol took a deep breath. She turned her head away from the Gu God ring's 10,000 Gu spirit devouring technique. She was suppressing the greed in her heart. "Tell me, what do you want?" She didn't believe that there was such a good thing in the world, especially when it came to the person in front of her. She was sure that there was a trap. "Princess Carol, you worry too much. Do you remember what I said just now? What we lack the most now is the battle strength of the spirit astral realm. I believe that with the complete 10,000 Gu spirit devouring technique and the divine Gu ring, your highness will be able to break through to the spirit astral realm soon. This is good for both you and me." Lung Shichi said very generously. Princess Carol sneered. "Nice words, but I won't believe a single word. Just tell me the truth." Lung Shichi was slightly stunned. Everything he said was true. Why did Princess Carol have such a reaction? Could it be that no one believed the truth these days? Actually, he could only blame himself for this. He had once caused Princess Carol quite a bit of trouble. As the saying went, a fall into the pit, a gain in one's wit. This Princess Carol was no fool. Lung Shichi thought quickly and said, "Sure enough, I can't hide anything from your highness. I said that when your highness took back the throne, you would join my force. Now, I am willing to use the divine poison ring and the 10,000 poisonous spirit devouring technique to let your highness join in advance." Hearing Lung Shichi's conditions, Princess Carol's expression showed that she had expected it. Lung Shichi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He continued, "My faction doesn't have any powerful restraints. You're still you. It's just that matter is getting closer and closer. It's necessary for us to establish the necessary trust, isn't it?" Princess Carol suddenly showed hesitation. Lung Shichi was not in a hurry. He stood by the side and waited slowly. Finally, Princess Carol looked at the divine poison ring and the 10,000 poisonous spirit devouring technique. She gritted her teeth and said, "I agree." Lung Shichi looked at the system notification before him. The first condition for Underworld's upgrade had been completed. Lung Shichi said, "Very good." That's it?" Princess Carol said with some astonishment. "Princess Carol, what else do you want? Shouldn't there be some kind of ceremony or token or something?" Speaking of this, Lung Shichi had never thought about it. After all, he had the system. As long as he agreed to let others join the underworld, it would be fine. Therefore, he really didn't have any identity token or anything like that. This would lead to the members of the underworld not knowing that the other party was one of them even if they met face to face. However, Lung Shichi thought about it and felt that this might not be a bad thing. It would be good for the members of the underworld to keep their identities a secret. In this way, no one in this world except him would know the true identity of all the members of the underworld. This would also ensure the secrecy of the underworld to the greatest extent. Thinking of this, Lung Shichi said, "Our faction is called the Underworld. It's a relatively free force. Or rather, it's more appropriate to call it an organization. All members of the underworld will keep their identities a secret. We're just taking what we need, that's all." However, Lung Shichi had no intention of bringing Princess Carol into the underworld because he couldn't trust her too much yet. Although he could decide Princess Carol's life and death at any time, he couldn't guarantee that she wouldn't spread the news about the underworld. This was the difference between her and Delta Origi and Tudun. This underworld is very special. Princess Carol originally thought that she would be tied to a pirate ship from now on, but now it seemed that she was thinking too much. Lung Shichi pushed the Gu God ring and Gu God devouring technique forward and said, "Now, Your Highness, can you accept these items?" This time, Princess Carol didn't refuse. She took the 2 items and put them away like they were priceless treasures. She said, "I won't take these items for free. I will do my best to cultivate and nurture my faction. At the same time, I will also secretly contact my original clan relatives and more or less win over some people's support. I won't drag you down." "That's good. We can put this matter aside for now. Your Highness, please help me take a look at this list." Lung Shichi said and took out a name card. It recorded the name list of the Zhulu Kingdom's envoy group that was going to the Thunderfire Dynasty's birthday celebration. There were about 40 to 50 people. Princess Carol opened it and saw some familiar names. She asked in confusion, "What's wrong with these people?" To be honest, the Thunderfire Dynasty's emperor will be holding his 70th birthday half a year later. These are the people who will be going. Your Highness, please take a look and see if there's anyone with an unclean background. Lung Shichi didn't hide anything. This matter would spread in Zhulu Kingdom in the near future. Princess Carol had been a princess for a long time and should be quite familiar with the officials. Letting her take a look would be more useful than having a group of Dark Thunder Guards investigate for a few months. She carefully looked again. Every time she saw a name, she would more or less pause as if she was recalling something. After an hour, she said, "Most of the people here are still important officials from before. There's no problem. There are also a few that I don't recognize. They should be Gus' new confidants. From what I know, Gus really wants to climb up to the Thunderfire Dynasty. I don't think he would dare to do anything." Lung Shichi thought so too. Zhulu Kingdom and Beilu Kingdom were both vassals of the Thunderfire Dynasty. They wouldn't do anything. The focus was on the other 4 small kingdoms, especially the Golden Tribe Kingdom and Tuoba Kingdom that were close to the Starfall Dynasty. "Since that's the case, I'll be leaving." Lung Shichi was about to leave when he suddenly turned around and asked, "Oh right, who is the person that Gus values the most in the Zhulu Kingdom?" Princess Carol raised her brows and asked, "What do you want to do?" Lung Shichi shrugged and said, "Since I'm already here, I can't just come here for nothing. I'll weaken Gus's power a little." Princess Carol seemed to have guessed what Lung Shichi wanted to do. She took a deep breath and said 2 names. Chapter 626. Lung Shichi came to the Zhu Road Kingdom's imperial city again after 2 years. 2 years ago, he came with Yu Ruifeng to hold the emperor accountable. At that time, he was just an insignificant person who thought he was just going through the motions. But now, he did come with a bold idea, which was to assassinate the important ministers of the Zhu Road Kingdom, Keith and Dale. Keith was a close relative of King Gus and was in charge of the imperial guards in the imperial city, just like when Gus was still a prince. As for Dale, he was the current elder of the kingdom and was in charge of many civil officials. Both of them were promoted after Gus ascended to the throne and could be said to be Gus's most trusted and closest people. At this time, Gus had already set off for the Thunderstorm Dynasty with his division. Although there was still half a year before the birthday banquet, the earlier they got it, the more sincere they were. But Gus didn't know that as soon as he left, Lung Shichi sneaked into the imperial city. He stood in an ordinary inn in the imperial city and opened his Byakugan to monitor almost the entire imperial city. Unfortunately, after Gus became the king, he set up a powerful formation in the imperial city. Even Lung Shichi's Byakugan couldn't see through it. He monitored here for 2 days before confirming the location and life pattern of Keith and Dale. Late at night, Keith dragged his tired body out of the imperial city. Gus left with the delegation. Although he was in power now, the ministers in the imperial city simply ignored him. He had only been in power for 2 or 3 days, but he was already facing countless troubles, which made him, a master of Gang Spirit Realm, feel very tired. "Alas, this is more tiring than asking me to fight. It's not easy to be the king," Keith muttered as he walked. But the next moment he suddenly looked up and saw a colorful streamer in the night sky. Before it got close, he could feel the terrifying fluctuation of spiritual power and shocking spiritual power. "Who is it?" he roared, and at the same time, Gang Spirit burst out from his body. A crescent-shaped long saber slashed out and more than 200 feet long swept out, seeming to tear the night sky apart. The guards around him were either in spiritual aperture realm or spiritual pulse realm. They immediately used all their skills to attack the sky. Just as everyone's attention was on the sky, a figure suddenly appeared behind Keith. This person was wearing a 5-colored armor, but within the 5-colored glazed light, a dazzling golden light burst out. After this person appeared, he flipped his palm and in an instant, a golden light burst out as if a sun had appeared, illuminating the night as if it was daytime. Keith instantly sensed something strange behind him. He turned around abruptly, but all he saw was endless Buddhist light. Extreme darkness and extreme light could make people blind. But Keith, as a master of gang spirit realm, had already opened his eye aperture, so he would hardly encounter the situation of blindness. But at this moment he actually really could not see anything other than the golden light. The first move of the Buddha's palm, the first appearance of Buddha's light. Although Keith couldn't see, he could still sense the fluctuations of spiritual power in the outside world. His scimitar slashed continuously, and streaks of saber aura raged like waterfalls. He thought that he would be able to force the enemy to retreat, but immediately after, he heard a series of clanking sounds, as if he was standing on an extremely hard rock. Suddenly he felt a huge force hit him as if a hand was pressing on his body. Bursts of violent power broke into his body, wantonly destroying his meridians. Puff! Keith raised his mouth and spat out a large mouthful of blood, but the force did not disappear. Instead, it turned around and pressed him to the ground. Boom, boom, boom. A series of loud noises came out. With the place where they were fighting as the center, the ground within a radius of hundreds of feet collapsed in an instant. Keith was almost crushed to death by this force, but he was also a master of gang spirit realm. With a fierce look on his face, his long scimitar instantly broke and was stained with his essence and blood. Immediately, the blood-like saber aura rolled back and was about to devour xianxia. However, xianxia did not dodge. Under the continuous movement of his 10 fingers, 10 rays of starlight penetrated into Keith's body. At the same time, Keith's saber aura completely cut on xianxia's body. To his horror, with a loud bang, xianxia's colorful armor was cut into pieces, but that was all. It was difficult to move an inch further. What a strong physical body. Keith was shocked. Zhulu country had many spirit cultivators that trained in gu techniques, so they rarely met spirit cultivators that trained in body refinement. Keith had also been through hundreds of battles, but he had never met an enemy with such a strong body. This was also the last thought in Keith's life. At this moment, the power contained in the blood thunder star shattering finger burst out and directly exploded Keith into countless pieces. Xianxia relied on the strength of his physical body to kill a master of gang spirit realm in a few moves. Even he himself was a little surprised. He could not help but secretly exclaim, "The Vajra unbreakable divine art combined with the Buddha's palm has such a terrifying power." For a long time, xianxia's fighting style was to use all kinds of powerful spiritual power to attack crazily and oppress others with force. He also practiced a powerful body refining technique, and his physical strength was far beyond that of ordinary spirit cultivators. It could even be said that ordinary body cultivators did not have the strength of his physical body. However, xianxia used his physical strength as an auxiliary or defensive role, and rarely used his physical strength to fight directly. This time, in order to hide his identity, he used the Vajra unbreakable divine art to crush Keith with abnormal and violent strength, which made him realize the strength of his physical strength again. More importantly, he actually felt very good about it. This feeling of punches hitting flesh really made him a little fascinated. Who dares to commit murder in King City? Just after xianxia killed Keith, 2 huge spiritual auras rapidly approached. Xianxia frowned. The 2 were actually great masters of oneness of heaven and man. When did Gus recruit 2 more masters of oneness of heaven and man? However, now was not the time to think about it. With a thought, his body flashed with red, blue and yellow divine light, and his figure disappeared before the 2 masters arrived. One of them saw Keith's miserable state and immediately shouted at the guards, "Trash, all of you are trash. You can't even protect Lord Keith, what use are you?" Not long after King Gus left, Keith, who was temporarily in power, was assassinated in King City. The 2 of them could not escape the blame, so this person vented his anger on the guards. The guards immediately lowered their heads with bitter expressions, not daring to speak. "Alright, what's the use of being angry with them?" The other person said, "You saw the strength of that assassin, even you and I felt a trace of threat." Keith was killed in a few breaths and these guards could not intervene at all. The most important thing now is to quickly seal off King City and capture the assassin. We must not let him escape. Are you all deaf? Hurry up. Chapter 627. Just when the 2 Oneness of Heaven realm experts gave the order, xianxia stood at the top of a giant tree more than 20 miles away, holding a strange longbow in his hand. It was a 7th level weapon, Spirit Fox Lotus Bow. Xianxia injected his vigorous spiritual energy into it, and the bow suddenly trembled slightly. Purple and pink light flickered, and the shadow of a spirit fox loomed. All of a sudden, 2 crimson-red arrows formed in the air. With a single thought from xianxia, the pure gold earth dragon flames surged out and dyed the arrows with a layer of pure gold. The blue and white light in xianxia's eyes kept flashing. In his sight, he locked on a slightly defeated old man in an ancient mansion in Tortoise City. That man was the current state elder of Zhu Road country, Delay. Delay and Keith could be said to be Gus's right-hand men. If the two of them died suddenly, it would plunge the Zhu Road country into turmoil. At this moment, Gus was about to enter the territory of the Thunderous dynasty. Even if he knew the news, he might not come back. If he really came back, he might be able to stabilize the situation quickly. But in that case, he would break his promise with the Thunderous dynasty, which was very unfavorable to him. If he didn't come, the effect of only sending a message to appease the situation would be much smaller, which would buy some time for Princess Carol and Chu Li. So Delay must die. Lung Shichi's spiritual energy surged, and even raised a terrible spiritual storm in the air. Then too many dragon-shaped arrows shot out. The two dragon-shaped arrows were like two dragons playing with a pearl, intertwining with each other and shooting straight at Delay with extreme flames in the night sky. 6th level spiritual skill, double flying fire. As the current state elder, Delay was guarded by two gang spirit realm experts in his mansion. They were always outside Delay's door. But at this moment, the two dragon-shaped arrows came straight at him at an unimaginable speed. They seemed to be several miles away a moment ago, but in the blink of an eye, they had come to the top of the mansion. The two gang spirit realm guards just reacted at this time. They didn't have time to be surprised and hurriedly used their strongest means to stop the double-flying arrows. In the next moment, a thick and heavy fist aura crashed toward the arrow with the weight of Mount Tai. The other person was a spirit caster. He directly bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a strand of essence blood. At the same time, his body lit up with specks of dark red flames that condensed into layers of shields in front of him. However, when the brilliant dragon flames descended, they instantly extinguished the fist aura. As for the dark red flames, they actually collapsed in front of the pure gold earth dragon flames. The two of them actually couldn't even hold on for a breath of time. The two of them were horrified. Facing the threat of death, they couldn't care less about protecting the elder anymore. The two of them burst out with their fastest speed and dodged to the sides. Fortunately, the target of the twin flying fire was not them, allowing the two to escape with their lives. Unfortunately, they could escape, but Delay couldn't. Without the protection of an expert, Delay, whose cultivation was almost negligible, had no ability to resist at all. With a loud bang, a huge fire cloud exploded in the mansion, and even the entire King City was affected to a certain extent. Delay was burned into nothingness in an instant. Not only that, bursts of dragon flames overflowed everywhere. No matter what it touched, everything was burned to ashes. In just a few breaths, the surrounding thousands of feet had turned into scorched earth, and there were still traces of flames burning. Although they were only flames, the aura they emitted was extremely terrifying. This process was very long, but in fact, from the time Ling Shichi killed Keith to the time he shot Delay, it was only a few breaths of time. On the other side, the two spirit cultivators in King City had just arranged for people to seal the city gate when they saw the twin dragon arrows streaking past like meteors. They also wanted to go over, but the distance was too far. They couldn't rush over at all. The two of them could only watch as Delay's mansion turned into a sea of fire and watch as he was shot to death. Ah. Who the hell is it? Do you dare to fight fair and square? Both of them were almost driven crazy. Keith and Delay were assassinated one after another. They had a powerful cultivation base of unity of heaven and man, but they couldn't do anything about it. This huge sense of grievance made them all irritable. But they could only be angry here, because they hadn't even seen the appearance of the assassin so far. At least the assassin of Keith had shown up, but the assassin who shot Delay was probably 10 miles away, or even outside King City. How could they chase after him? Damn it, damn it. The man with a more violent temper immediately roared, "Don't let me catch you or I will let you know what it means to beg for death." The other person was much calmer. He said in a low voice, "It seems that the assassination was premeditated. The enemy waited for King Gus to leave before taking action. And they must be very familiar with King City. The cultivation of each assassin is obviously in gang spirit realm, but the strength of his attack is very close to unity of heaven and man. Such a person is rare, so the person who did it has a very strong background. Is it the people of Great Moon Kingdom? Great Moon Kingdom had always been hostile to Zhulu country, and it was much stronger than Zhulu country. If it weren't for Beilu country between the two countries, Zhulu country might have been destroyed at any time. Very capable, but this matter is out of our control. We must inform King Gus immediately. Yes, not only that, the assassin could sneak into King City so easily and know the location of Keith and Delay, which means that there is probably a spy in King City. These hidden spies must be pulled out as well. You and I will act separately. The most important thing now is to stabilize King City. Alas, troubled times. Lung Shiqi, who was dozens of miles away, confirmed De Lei's death through the supercilious eye, and then left smartly. This trip to Zhulu country not only acquired a lot of Buddhist cultivation methods and spiritual skills, but also set up a lot of backup plans. When he was stronger, he could plot to conquer the whole Zhulu country. Next, Lung Shiqi opened the system map, which showed the locations of the other 5 small countries. He was deep in thought, thinking about which small country he should go to first to gather information. Zhulu country and Beilu country both wanted to ride on the coattails of Thunder Flame Dynasty. In fact, there was no need to investigate deeply. He could let his Dark Thunder Guards investigate. He looked at Golden Tribe Kingdom and Tuoba country, which had turned to Starfall Dynasty. He murmured, Starfall Dynasty is the furthest away. Their delegation should have set off. They will pass through 6 countries in the western region to Thunder Flame Dynasty, so their first stop must be Tuoba country. At the same time, Lung Shiqi still remembered the task given to him by Lord He Yen, so he decided to set off for Tuoba country immediately.